Okay, y'all ready? Oscar wants me to do this just because I think in 6 years I've never done that. So I felt like we'd do it tonight just for the sake of doing it. In compliance with Chapter 551 of the Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code as amended, I call to order a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Monday, November 19, 2012. Who's got AT&T official time? 7:08 p.m. The board may meet in closed session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including the election of board officers and individual board member roles and duties, deliberation of purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, deliberation of negotiated contract for prospective gift to the district, deliberation about commercial or financial information that the board has received from a business prospect, or deliberation of the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect, or to consult with legal counsel regarding a pending or contemplated litigation or on a settlement offer or on a matter which the school district's legal counsel determines should be confidential in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, and 551.071, respectively. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is always a pretty fun evening, especially for those of us that are leaving and don't have to deal with the rest of it.
Mr. President,
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
move approval.
Is there a second? Lots of seconds. Okay, second, Ms. Torres. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously. Thank you, board. Okay, we are fortunate to have the wonderful students and some fifth graders from Ortega Elementary School to do the pledge. And I will tell you, there's some things about Monday nights I am not going to miss. Most of them, this is one I'm going to miss. I love having the students come up. So why don't y'all come up? You're in charge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Libertad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Honor la bandera de Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Honra la bandera de Texas. Te juro lealtad. Texas, un estado bajo Dios, uno indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
That part too. Big round of applause. Okay. Why don't you tell us who we have here today?
Good evening, esteemed board members, and welcome to our new AISD board members. I am Dr. Ana Pedrosa, and I am the proud principal of Ortega Elementary School in East Austin. Ortega has this long history of being a high-performing campus, and we have a motto that directs us with our work. It is work hard, act smart, and lead with heart. So I am proud to present to you our junior counselors who do that every day. These are student leaders who lead community service projects like Legacy for Giving. They conduct student peer mediations, and they help run the homework club. So here this evening, I'd like to introduce to you Aramis Williams, Reyes de la Cruz, Alicia Rodriguez, Lorena Munoz, Carmelo Matavela, Destiny Brown, Tehran Johnson, and no relations, but Darius Johnson. Leading this club is our award-winning counselor, Autumn Messinger.
Thanks, Autumn. Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
For all you do, and it's been great. Okay, so we're going to have y'all come up here, and we've got T-shirts, and we'll give you. And because you all are fifth graders, we're probably not going to come in front just because you're big enough to be up here. Okay? You all ready? Come on up. Okay, it looks like our wonderful Ortega crew is assembling for departure, which I don't blame you. Y'all guys got things to do. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here. Are there any other parents, family members, or anybody else? Okay, to all the Ortega crew, thank you for being here. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving, and we will hopefully see you later. See y'all. Okay, folks. Well, this is, at least maybe some of you came for all of this. So we've got a couple items tonight related to sort of telling goodbye to the old folks and then in with the new. And we'll turn it over, at least initially, to Dr. Christopherson.
Great. Good evening, Mr. President and trustees of the board. It would be really hard for us to make this transition tonight without the administration and as the superintendent representing our organization to say to many of you, thank you for your service on this board. It's been my honor to be able to work with you for the last 3 years, and I wanted to specifically thank 4 of our committed trustees who have given countless hours of their service and actually, time out of their busy schedules for me so that I could do my very best as superintendent of the district. I'll say just a few words because I know some of you want to say other things too, but I wanted to start with District 2's Sam Guzman, who began his service in 2007 and was actually reelected in 2008, and our tenures crossed. He's the father of actually 2 AISD graduates, and you even have, I think, 4 grandkids, 2. Four grandkids. 2 of them are here in Austin going to our AISD schools. You've been an advocate that's, I know, worked very hard to improve working conditions for staff, especially our classified employees, where you worked very hard to also work on minority contracts and ensuring that there's diversity in the way that we spend our money and support people in Austin. You've also been instrumental in ensuring that the Anita Up House Early Childhood Center was opened. It was in response to overcrowding at Linder Elementary School and bringing that issue to the table. Finally, after many years, it seems, that solution was actually resolved here at the beginning of this school year. I know that you've been a supporter with our efforts to improve bilingual education for the ever-growing English language learning population, and so we thank you for that. And you know that our dual language, our transition from a late exit model to dual language is going to make a huge difference for our kids. So just on behalf of the district, I want to say we appreciate everything that you've done for your 5 years of service on the board, and we will miss you. 6, I'm sorry, yes, right, 6. I'm counting this year, I forgot, 6 years, so thank you so much. Christine Brister was elected to represent District 3 in 2008, and after many years of service when she was volunteering at the school level and the district level, especially at your beloved high school of Lanier, she's had a very steady hand and a firm voice on behalf of her constituents, and you will also be remembered for your efforts to help us sort out overcrowding in North Central Austin. The pre-K centers, the work to actually help us increase graduation rates and reduce the dropout rate for our multiple pathways programs at Lanier and Travis and our Twilight schools. So I know that you're looking out for our most vulnerable students, and we really appreciate that. You also are a mother of 4 Lanier graduates, and you've shown that not only do you love and care about your kids, but you care about all the kids in AISD. So thank you so much, and for being our 12 o'clock noon calendar committee, always on time, always ends on time, and given my schedule, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated that. So thank you for making your time to help our administration in planning these wonderful board meetings and committee meetings. Our at-large trustee, Annette Lavoie, has represented District 8, which actually encompasses all of Austin. You were elected in 2004 after service on 2, not 1, but 2 citizens bond committees, and I know that has been a ton of work, especially given all of the big heavy lifting that's happened recently, including a performing arts center that's on its way. You've been a firm supporter of dual language, as we've referenced multiple times, an advocate for sustainable environmental programs and practices, and a champion for Central Austin and other areas of the city. And so we really appreciate the dedication that you've served and for spending lots of time and effort helping us really break into the 21st century around making a smaller environmental impact on our earth and in Austin. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. And of course, our board president, Mark Williams, is the trustee that I think I've come to know the best and have spent the most time with. I will miss you as a friend as well as a trustee. You have been very good to us, and I just can't think of the countless hours that you have spent after very late board meetings to ensure we could get off to a great day the very next morning. You actually surprised me tonight using the gavel, because I was going to say he's never used the gavel in all of his tenure, but I had to scratch that out of my little speech. But but we know you didn't mean it. You've been unfailingly courteous and unflappable, even in the most difficult times, even after some of our toughest discussions about what to do right and wrong for the district. Sometimes you always come out with a smile on your face and back for more, it seems. So thank you so much. Your background is actually in finance and accounting, and I don't know if many people know this, but he has certainly put those skills to the test for us in Austin. We couldn't have had you at a more invaluable time, especially given what we've had to do as a result of state budget cuts. I know Nicole Conley-Abram asked me specifically to thank you for just painstakingly going through the niggly details of our budget, making sure that we were doing the best for our taxpayers. I guess as the superintendent, spending a lot of time wherever we could, and sometimes it was taking rides together with your kids in the back seat, and we all became a big family just trying to get the work done. I got to witness you being a dad. And I got to tell you, you just have a beautiful family and wonderful children. And you have 2 former students and 1 still in high school right now. And I just know that if your love for your kids are any indication of your love for this district, then we are so blessed. You not only attend every single event, it seems, on those yellow papers for board stuff. You are a full-time social butterfly, serving all kinds of committees and boards all over Austin. You are, like in our world, our little mayor of AISD. But you not only do that, you actually donate generously to those boards and organizations because they actually support AISD. And so I know you didn't think I knew that, but I do know that, and I'm telling everybody now. And you also took all of your connections and all the people that you know to introduce us to more partners and funders. And so in this year alone, I think that you probably had a lot to do with our ability over the last 2 years to raise about $50 million of external funding for this district. So you are a wonderful person and a great man, and you've just been a delightful president to work with. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And his nickname when he's not around is Trustee McDreamy. But anyway. In honor of our departing board members and to welcome our new trustees, we're fortunate this evening to have the students from Aikens High School perform for us. Thanks to the Aikens Fine Arts Director, Kathy Bennett, who's also the director for our guitar program. Oh, they're the what? Oh my gosh, I forgot the plaques. What was I saying? Well, while the guitarists are coming, I've got gifts for you. My bad. First, it is a plaque. I'm going to pass it down to Christine Brister. Please pass this to Sam Guzman. Mark, this is yours.
Thank you.
And Annette, I'm going to meet you halfway. There you go. And so there's a trick to opening the box. You take out the paper and you pull the tab on the side. But it is a plaque that honors you by name, and it tells the years of your service and, of course, expresses our appreciation as a district for all that you've done. You lift it. Wait, don't tear it up. We've actually, there you go. See, it's like a little magnet thing. There. So it's in recognition of their exemplary service to the children of Austin, and it also tells their time as a trustee. And so it's with grateful appreciation that all of you have done that. And so I'd like to welcome our students forward.
You want to let the people talk first, or you want to have this?
Yeah, just let them, if y'all can go ahead and have a seat, and then we'll introduce you again in just a second. And I know that there were a couple of trustees that wanted to recognize other trustees that were leaving. I'll turn it over to Mr. Williams to do this part of the evening.
Okay, thank you very much for doing this. Ms. Bradley?
I'm just going to make a few comments, and it won't be long because we have quite a few things to do this evening. But I just wanted to say to our outgoing trustee and Mr. Sam Guzman that it has been a pleasure and an honor to serve with you. The one thing about being on the board of trustees is that you have to love children and you have to want to do the right thing for children, whether it's popular or not. But you have to have the courage and you have to be able to stick to what you feel is the right thing to do at all times, and Mr. Guzman has done that. And I know it has not been an easy task, but there has not been a time that he has not put children first at any time and at all times. And I can truly say that it has been just a sheer pleasure and an honor to serve side by side with you, Mr. Guzman. And hopefully this is not the end of your service, that you will be working with us in this district as we go forward, because we still have a lot of work to do. We have done some good things as partners with District 1 and District 2 and the entire district, and I look forward to working with you in the future, maybe not as a trustee, but as a community grassroots person that you are. And I just want to say I love you, and I can't wait to work with you.
Mr. Guzman.
Well, thank you, Ms. Bradley. The fact is that Ms. Bradley, I picked Ms. Bradley as my mentor when I came on the board several years ago, and I learned a lot from her, from all the board members, Mr. Williams, Ms. Moya, Mr. Torres, and all the members that I served with. Well, as they say, all good things must come to an end, and serving on this board and serving this community certainly was a good thing for me. They also say that time flies when you're having fun. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it fun, but certainly gratifying and rewarding. And, you know, many people say serving on the board is a thankless job. I'm sorry, I disagree completely. It is not a thankless job because, you know, we're serving our future, and that's our children. There's so many things to say and so many people to thank and recognize. And one of our favorite things, I would speak for all my colleagues, is what we did today, and that's recognize our children when they come before us, and actually lead us instead of the other way around. That's what we like. What I like the best. What I dislike or the worst thing for me was what I spent doing in the past couple of months. I don't think any of us like that necessarily, but it's one of the things that we all go through to serve on this board. The members of the board and my colleagues are certainly very important to this district, and I thank them all for after having spent six years in this position. The staff, starting with our campus staff, our principals, our teachers. I don't think any of us can imagine one day without a teacher. I mean, they spend 8 hours or 6 hours to 8 hours with our children. What more can you say? I mean, they're helping us grow and mold and make our children the best and most productive citizens that they possibly can. One of the most honorable careers and positions in this society. But the support staff in the campuses are also extremely important, obviously, to us, all of them. Cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodians, and I shan't leave out librarians. Even though there's less of them, they're always real important to us. Central administration, all of them. We have an award-winning CFO. I'm not supposed to mention names, by the way, so I'm going to try to avoid that, at least when I sit here. After I'm out there, I can mention their names. Our CFO, an award-winning CFO on a national basis that has brought this organization and its budget process and its finances to a much higher level, and will certainly maintain it there. Our COO is also an award-winning individual, and in terms of the operation, central operation, in that Mr. Kurt Shaw, I have to say that. And everybody knows Kurt Shaw just by name. And Mr. Turner, Paul Turner. I mean, what a magnificent job they've done throughout the years for this organization. I think they may be short timers for that matter, but they still continue to do a grand job for us. That without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. Mr. PC, Mr. Paul Cruz, Dr. Paul Cruz, obviously known throughout the state, known really throughout the nation as an educator. I know a lot of people in many parts of the state that tell me, you know, you have a great person in Dr. Paul Cruz, and the administration is lucky to have him. Mr. Waxler, who is now not our attorney, but served as our attorney, and so very valuable in that position, and now obviously is serving the administration directly as in his position. So much good advice that we obtain. But I will tell you that one of the most important persons to this board and to me has been our secretary, Elaine Hopkins, who's sitting right here. And you never see her, and you know, you never hear her, but let me tell you, without her, it'd be very difficult for us to function, certainly for me to function, because she's so very helpful. And Mitzi, prior to her. And so, of course, there's many more, Dr. Oropez and so many more that I could mention. All working up to the superintendent, our superintendent, Dr. Karstarfen, who in 3 years has brought this district to the #1 position among the Big 8 in the state of Texas. That says volumes in terms of what she's done. And let me tell you, I'm not sure that this is often noticed, but she is the first woman to serve in that position as superintendent. And she's also the first African American to serve in that position. That's something to be celebrated as well. And so, again, we're fortunate to have her as our superintendent. But I won't take any more of your time because there's other people that have to go after me. I will just say that it was a good 6 years. We did a lot, but I can't leave without thanking community members, all community members, and I do mean all, because a lot of times we hear the people that come before us here in this room, and often think that that's the community. That's not the community. There's a lot of community members that can't come here. They also deserve the right to be listened to. And you know, there's several that I see just in the audience. Larry Amado, I don't know if Pete Montoya is here, Mr. Dominguez is here, and several others, Francis Martinez and Frank, and just so many of them that you know, they're strictly volunteers, and they come and they work consistently because they care for the kids and they care for our district. And I hope that that will continue. And there's community members right now that are have different opinions, okay, about things. It's necessary for us to someday, somehow, pretty soon, start working together, and all for the benefit of our children. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and always call on me. I'll be in the community. I've been in the community for the past going on 40 years, doing many things that I do from here, but I do it from the community level, and I will continue. Thank you so much.
Ms. Moya.
Thank you. I was thinking about what I would say about my good friend Christine Villarreal Brister. a fellow native Austinite. I have to say those things. We'll practice on Villarreal. And I honestly, and I make a little joke because we've been laughing for the last 4 years about pronouncing her maiden name. So, but we'll skip over that. Christine is, as the superintendent said, a tireless advocate for children in District 3, and the campus is in District 3, but she didn't stop there. Christine's love for children goes across the entire district, and every decision she made was always about the kids. She's quiet, not because she doesn't have anything to say, but because she doesn't see the need to repeat what other people have already said. Christine's been a loyal trustee to the superintendent and staff, and that's all staff. Her support of our staff at all levels is unparalleled. She's always voted her conscience in what she believed to be the right thing at that time with the options and choices we had at that time. And so she's one of the strongest individuals I've ever known. She doesn't sacrifice her principles because there's pressure from the outside. She believes what she believes, and she votes her conscience. And that's one of the things that I have always admired about Christine. I haven't known you for that long, but it seems like it's been forever. But she went to Reagan, and I went to Travis. You know, it's just one of those things. But I know this isn't going to be the last time I see you, and you cannot keep my baby Maddie away from me. It's her granddaughter, but I've adopted her. And your kids, Jacob is one of the most awesome young men, drum majors I've ever known, and I love him like he's my own. And I will miss you. I'll miss Sam too. Sam, where are you? I know you're out there. You are. But I have all of your phone numbers and your email addresses, so you won't be getting rid of me anytime soon. And I have enjoyed serving on the board with you and cherish the times we've had together. And thank you so much for your service for all of our children.
Ms. Brisbane.
I'm going to have trouble. Thank you, Ms. Moya, for those kind words, and I feel the same way. I will definitely miss you. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, I was thinking about the past 4 years and where we were 4.5 years ago in May of 2008. And I think when all of us first come on the board, we've got all kinds of things that we want to do, and sometimes, I know for me, I wasn't quite as prepared as I thought I was for some of the decisions that we were going to be making. When I came on the board, we had Johnston High School to deal with, and we also had Reagan and Pierce were also in difficulty at the time. And it just, when I think back on the things that we've had to do, having to hire the superintendent, and I will always stand by the decision that we made the right decision in bringing Dr. Kerstarf to Austin. But then shortly after that, starting to deal with the budget issues and dealing with financial exigency and reduction in force, those were things that were not easy to do. Then in the last year, dealing with our AFRs, as Dr. Kerstarf had said earlier, talking about the graduation rates, bringing in the different programs to help with those graduation rates. I went back and looked, what were my priorities when I came on the board in 2008? And for me, it was to deal with the severe overcrowding in North Austin, and it was to deal with graduation rates and our dropouts. And it was also to have more attention focused on the fine arts. And now when I turn around and I look back, I can see that we have dealt with all of those. Now, some of these decisions that we've made over the years have not been easy, and they've been difficult, and they were not popular. But I do want to say that all of this work, it wasn't just the board. The staff needs to take credit for a lot of the work that we've done, in fact, all of the work that we've done. The superintendent, I want to thank her for her hard work and her leadership. She's willing to bring those hard things to the table, and this board has been willing to deal with those hard issues. I also want to thank, and I'm going to name the staff, but and there's a lot of people I'm probably going to miss, but these are the ones that really came to mind. I want to thank Mel Waxler for all your help and support and explanation of things. Dr. Cruz, thank you so much for your leadership. I also want to thank Edmund Oropez, and I had the pleasure of meeting Edmund Oropez when he was the principal at Lanier High School when my third son was a senior. So I've gotten to see him progress, and I've been real pleased with his leadership. I also want to thank Paul Turner, Kurt Shaw, and Lawrence Fryer, because without you, we would not have the North Central Elementary School #1 and #2 coming online here in the next couple of years. So I also want to thank Dr. Hohenstein for all her help and leadership for the schools in District 3. And I also especially want to thank Elaine Hopkins, our board's executive assistant, and also Barbara Saldana. These ladies really make sure that we're taken care of, that we have everything that we need, and that we're comfortable. And that really goes a long way, especially on these late nights that we have sometimes, but we really could not do it without our support people. And next, I need to really thank my husband, Sam, for his support and help over the last 4 years. I could not have done this without his support. He had to take over a lot of the child care. Even though our son was a high school student, there were still things that he had to take over. There's a lot of different functions that we have to attend, a lot of late nights, evenings, and weekends. And he stepped up and he did what he needed to do. During that time, he also attended many functions with us, and as a board member, we're out a lot in the evenings and on the weekends, and Mark Williams coined it as date night. So when he didn't see Sam, he wanted to know where was Sam, wasn't it date night? So some of those of you that are married, it may turn into date night because sometimes it gets so busy that that may be the only time you get to see your spouse. I also want to say thank you to my youngest son, Jacob, and that doesn't mean I don't appreciate my other boys, but I'll get to them. Our youngest son, Jacob, just graduated from Lanier in May, and he is now a freshman at Angelo State University in San Angelo, so he couldn't be here tonight, but he is watching our webcast. But I really want to say thank you, Jacob, because you allowed me to run for the board and to serve on the board. I know it was really hard. You had the parent with the asterisk by their name, and that's what Ryan Hopkins at Lanier High School, the assistant principal, kind of coined it whenever I was on campus. I wasn't just Jacob's mother, I was Jacob's mother, the board member, and that was sometimes difficult. He got attention that maybe he didn't want, but he took it good-naturedly, but then again, he got attention that he really liked. He really enjoyed meeting Dr. Karstarfen and Ms. Moya and the rest of the board. I also want to thank my other 3 children, Bo, Kevin, and Jeff. They always supported my service on the board, and they also stepped up to assist us with Jacob whenever there was an event or a function that we couldn't attend at school. One of the boys would step up and help with that. I also need to thank my mother and father, Crispin and Francis Villarreal. I never learned to speak Spanish, so forgive me. Villarreal. They're District 3 they're also District 3 residents, and so they're also my constituents. And I want to thank them for their support. A lot of times we did not see eye to eye on certain issues, and they let me know it. And a lot of times I had some explaining to do. So I really want to thank them, and they also did their part with our son Jacob as well. But there really are so many people to thank that we really, I can't name them all, but I know who you are, and you will hear from me. I will say thank you. I also want to say thank you. There is one more person, Catherine Ryan at Lanier High School. She's become a very dear friend, very dear supporter, and I looking forward to continuing to work with her in our neighborhood. So I'm not going to be fading away. I'm not going away. I can't let go. And I will be serving as the treasurer of the Lanier High School PTSA. So I'm going to take a short break, not too much. I think I have to get to work next month. And I also have family members that are attending District 3 schools, so I'm going to be volunteering in some way at their schools as well. I also want to say that my husband and I have always believed in our neighborhood school concept, and we've always supported the neighborhood schools, even though the neighborhoods have changed and become more diverse. My husband and I, as Dr. Karstafen has said, we're very proud parents of 4 Lanier High School graduates, and our youngest did graduate this past May. This past May, my husband and I also created 2 family scholarships to be presented to 2 Lanier graduates. And our sons were always active in band, athletics, and choir. And this year, we're happy to announce that we're going to be offering a 3rd scholarship that will recognize our youngest son's activities in the FFA at Lanier High School. And we're also going to be increasing that amount to $500 each. So we're really excited to be able to do that. It is our way of giving back to the community and our way of supporting the students who are wishing to continue their education. And finally, my other plan is that during our term, as Ms. Moya said, we became grandparents. And after having 4 boys, we now have a granddaughter, Madison, and she turned 14 months just the other day. Unfortunately, they're not here because Daddy is a policeman, and so he had to work tonight, so they were not able to be here. So we're planning to spend more time with her, and my Saturdays are now free. So if my daughter-in-law is listening, so I'm available. But I do have to say I really enjoyed my term in office. It is a very big job, but I do have to say that I am ready to step down and step back. It's an unpaid position, and for myself, I also have a full-time job, and sometimes you just have to be able to say something has to give and something had to give. But I can say that even with everything that's happened, everything that we've done here, for me, what really makes it all worthwhile is being able to see our students participating in academics, in fine arts, in athletics, in concerts. And for me, one of the greatest things that I was able to do was not only attending graduations and handing those diplomas over, but I got to hand my youngest son his diploma. That was a really great honor for me. So with that, what I'd like to say to our new members coming on board is that you have a big job to do. And I think one of the things that we all need to remember is that we're here for the children. And sometimes we are going to have conflict, but what I've learned being on the board is we can have conflict, we can have disagreements, but we can agree to disagree and move on. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to move on. We've got a lot of work to do in the next few years. And like I said, I'm not going away. You're still going to see me. So just remember that we really are here to provide the best education possible for every single child here in AISD. So one more time, I want to say thank you to everybody and good luck to everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Barksdale.
Thank you. I have some short remarks to share about Trustee Lavoie, Annette Lavoie, and I'll just get through this. So as a new board member, we all do different things to try to get to know our jobs and to serve the district well. The 4 new board members here tonight will spend the next several months, maybe even a year, getting to know how to be a trustee. My own orientation was served up a steep learning curve. Like Christine, I came in at a time when lots was going on in the district. I had the help of my board mentor, Lori Moya, and Mark was always good for a few minutes of conversation. And Dr. Karstafen dutifully introduced me to the ins and outs of her big job and this big district as well with regular meetings. But it was a single thought from Nanette Lavoie that put my mind at ease and turned down all the anxiety I had over getting it just right as a trustee. So I had this notion that the school board service was a lot about service and stewardship of the district, and honestly, a little bit about politics too. So I asked Annette during our first get-to-know-you meeting over coffee, right across the street, about something along the political lines, something we probably had coming up. And I said, what have you done before when maybe you've had to vote in a way where you weren't completely comfortable? And Annette looked at me with that steely gaze that we've all seen one time or another and said, that has never happened, my dear. I have always voted my conscience, every single time, every vote. Annette's remarks were not about ideology. They summed up Annette's more than a dozen years of service to AISD, doing what's right for kids that show up every day in the classroom where their teacher believes in their ability to achieve their full potential. Annette's service to AISD, of course, as Dr. Christopherson said, predates her time on the board. She was a two-time president of the Little School That Could, that I call PEAS, and was a member of the PCAC. And she did help lead those two bond committees, helping to secure $569 million for AISD schools. I struggled with wanting to include a laundry list of things Annette has championed in these remarks tonight. But I'll keep that list short so I can mention a story that I want to share with Annette that I don't think I've told her before, but I think she'll appreciate, and maybe you guys will too. So here's that list. As a champion for AISD schools and AISD kids, Annette has fought for dual language education, district equity, educator quality, stronger community engagement, more sustainable practices for the district as it grows, labor interests for folks that serve our students every single day, tight fiscal management, transparency in district operations, and above all, academic achievement for all students with a special eye on children and special education programs. So now on to that story. So I work at a little communications agency down the street. So we have the pleasure of working exclusively on things that serve public health, social causes, and the environment. That's what I get to do every day. So one day I was in the kitchen grabbing a cup of coffee in the morning and struck up a conversation with a new intern. The young lady was a student at Dartmouth, and she was an AISD graduate, so I was, impressed, and she'd gone to AISD schools, and my daughter was, young at the time in high school, and so I wanted to hear more from her, and we talked more. I learned very quickly that she was bright. She told me that a couple of projects she'd be handling for our agency over the next couple of months, and I was like, man, she is aiming very high. This beautiful young woman was home for the quarter. And as pleased as punch as she was with her great internship at the ad agency, she told me her better joy was getting to spend some time at home with her mom. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I put two and two together and realized that that wonderful, smart, accomplished, hopeful, and service-oriented young woman who I told my own daughter about at the time was your Amanda, Annette. I even brought my daughter Faith to the office for a secret meet and greet with this amazing new intern, hoping some of that polish and smarts would rub off. So now the secret's out. The apple did not fall far from the tree. You've pushed us to think bigger, Annette, and aim higher. We can't deny that you're tough. Maybe some of that rubbed off during your time working with Governor Richards. But in the end, tonight, you leave me, better and more hopeful for having served with you. Thank you for your service. Your voice will be missed.
Ms. Lavoie.
Ms. Barksdale, thank you. I will treasure those words. And I didn't know the story about Amanda. She didn't tell me, and I really appreciate that story. I think Faith and Amanda are the hope of the future, and I look forward to watching them. It's been a pleasure to serve with Ms. Barksdale. I consider her to be a model trustee. And congratulations to the new trustees in the audience. I wish you satisfying and enjoyable service, and you can do no better than to look to my colleague, Tamla Barksdale, for an indication of what can be accomplished and how to communicate excellent and thoughtful thinking. So thank you, Tamla. It's been a pleasure. I would like to thank the public as I conclude my service. And I would like to say to you and you and you and you and you and you, members of the public, that we trust you. Your voice has been steady, your voice has been sure, and you've been clear about what you expect this board to do. I would say to the incoming board members, trust the public. You might be thinking to yourself, who is the public? I'd like to pause for a moment and thank my husband, Jim Marston, who's my steady partner in everything, and I want to particularly thank him for keeping me light and making life fun. I have a wonderful partner in life. And one of the things he's taught me is to love football. And that will come as a surprise to my friends in the audience because I've never cared about football. I've never cared about going to games. But now I can't even remember what college I went to. I think I went to TCU. I think I'm a Horned Frog just because I've been to so many Horned Frog games. But one of the cheers that TCU does is one of my favorites. It goes, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, as we go around and do this cheer. And so I will say to the public, you and you and you and you and you have a voice in this district. I think you've been clear with that voice, and I'm speaking to the parents, I'm speaking to the guardians, I'm speaking to the older sisters and brothers who raise children, I'm speaking to the friends in the neighborhood, I'm speaking to citizens who are actively engaged in their schools, I'm speaking to you, musicians, young musicians who are here tonight, and to the students who've come before us. The gold standard for respecting public participation sits in our audience with us tonight. I've always been honored to learn from Gus Garcia, our former mayor, our former school board member, our former leader in many, 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 many causes. And I think that if we respect Gus's legacy, in listening to the public, if we honor that legacy, and if we pass it from ourselves to the new board members, we will be doing very, very well. So my final word is to the new board, and that is trust your instincts as you trust the public. And I would like to say to Gina Hinojosa, it is my very great pleasure to turn this seat over to you. You have my complete faith and confidence. I think the seat is in very, very good hands, and it will give me great pleasure over the years to watch your many, many accomplishments. Congratulations.
Mr. Torres.
I have the pleasure of offering a few remarks about the board president, Mark Williams. And as I thought about the things that I wanted to say about him, it reminds me of what gift do you give to a man that has everything? And what do you say to a man like Mark that has been recognized in this community by so many organizations, by so many people for the work that he does, not just for the school board, but for so many other organizations? There's no one on this board that has worked harder or given more hours to their trustee service than Mark Williams. Not only has he been in attendance at just about every board and committee meeting and represented the board at just about every event where the president of the board is invited, you've also seen him at almost every AISD community event. Some might say, well, the man doesn't have a job. He needs to do something to fill his time. Perhaps. But he chose to spend it on AISD work, attending AISD events, and the district has benefited greatly from his dedication and service to the AISD community. Being president of this board is not easy. The press does not treat you well in this city, with the exception of Melissa Taboda. It demands great sacrifice, a thick skin, and tremendous patience. Mark has met all three demands during his 6.5 years as president. And much has occurred during those 6.5 years. We celebrated the 120th anniversary of the district, have had successful bond and tax ratification elections, conducted a superintendent search, and had the opening of an early childhood center, 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders. We've also seen Johnston High and Pierce Middle Schools closed during that time. But whether good or bad, Mark has represented the board and the district admirably and in a dignified manner. And while each of these and other events and interactions with board members have had their trials and tribulations, I can share with you that Mark has always looked for the good, remained positive, and tried to find solutions that were in the best interest of all children in the district, regardless of their socioeconomic background or where they lived, and of the staff in AISD. One of the things we'll always remember about Mark is that he's always said, assume good intent. And for all the good that he has done for AISD as president, he has never sought praise and recognition for himself. While I will not miss his lack of punctuality or desire to summarize a trustee discussion when it has already been summarized and needed no further summarization, I will miss our post-meeting analysis of what we heard and summary of actions from the meeting and what we needed to do to get on with board work. And I'll just tell you about one event that I had, and my wife and I were parking our car in the parking lot of the Bullock Museum, and my wife, Suzanne, says, is that Mark Williams over there? And I looked, and sure enough, it was Mark. I walked over to him, and I said, hey, Williams, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I'm just here for an event. And I said, he says, what are you doing here? Are you getting an award? And I go, no, I'm not getting an award. Did I ever think to ask him if he was getting an award? Yes, he was getting an award. I didn't find out about it until they called out his name, Mark Williams, president of the AISD Board of Trustees, for his philanthropic service to the organization that he is a board member on. And so to you and to your family, Linda, Michael, Kelsey, and Justin, thank you for sharing him with us and for all your sacrifices. We're returning him a little bit more tattered and worn than when he first showed up here. But we're happy to say to you, Mark is coming home. Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. Wow. No, I can't. I'll buy best if I don't. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve, especially the residents and constituents of District 5. You know, we're elected, 7 of us are elected by geographic regions, 2 are at large. I'm one of those elected geographically. And so the residents of District 5, I appreciate the opportunity to have been up here and serve 8 years. The parents, the students, the staff of those schools have been tremendous support to me. I'm going to call it a couple people. There's been a lot of names mentioned, but I'm going to say Pete Price at O. Henry and Leocio Cazada at Austin High, and now at Sandy Campion. The principals there and all the staff have been just unbelievable in terms of what they do for kids. And people sometimes look at District 5 to use 2 examples, and both of those are majority minority schools, highly diverse, very, to me, great examples of how an entire community can come together to serve all children. And I look to those principals and their teams for what they can do. And I'm constantly amazed by what I see in those schools. But it's not just those schools. And I think people sometimes say, and I think Sam mentioned this about board service and how it's difficult or challenging. It is a lot easier being on the board than being an employee of AISD. And I truly believe that. We take a little bit of more public attention and heat occasionally, but this is a people business. The people in our school district that are out every single day, and there's a long list of them, but whether it's the bus drivers that take kids to and from school every day, the cafeteria workers that serve them food, the custodians that clean up for them, the facility people that make sure our buildings have heat and air conditioning and are running well, to all of the educators and administrators and campus support staff that are making sure those kids are taken care of every single day. I think I've mentioned this to some of you before, but my mom was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, my sister's a teacher, and now it turns out one of my nieces is going to be a teacher. And so I have this appreciation for those that are willing to devote their time. And I realize that what I do by comparison is really relatively small. The responsibilities of being an educator today, in today's public education climate, are enormously challenging. There aren't enough resources. There's not enough time. We don't pay you enough. And we are dealing in an environment and accountability challenges where things are just difficult. And yet this team, in this AISD team, we ask you to work miracles every day, and you do it so many times, day after day. I can't thank you enough for all the work you do on behalf of our children and our students. And I think this is it carries forward to the administrators at the top. We are really thin at the top. This district has been in a very difficult climate, as is all of public education with the state budget cuts. I think you've heard it before, but over a 2-year period, we lost $59 million out of really over a $700 million budget. But yet, and this is a comment, I guess, for the new trustees, I hope you understand, y'all are inheriting one of the best, if not the best, urban district in the state of Texas. We're far from perfect. We got a long way to go. But on a relative basis, we are doing extraordinary work in this district. We are financially sound. Graduation rates are as high as they've ever been. We have an incredible team assembled that is doing great work every day, every place. We need to understand and appreciate and recognize and celebrate that there's great work going on. Do we need to create a better climate? Do we need to make sure we're more supportive? Do we need to do all we can to support our people every day? Yes. But there's a lot of really good things going on. And there's many things I'm proud of. Vince mentioned some, but one of the things I think that is unique, I won't say it's unique to Austin, but it's certainly characteristic of Austin, is that there is an appreciation for the whole child. There's a lot of effort underway, and I'll give kudos to Dr. Kerstarfin. You talk about the money that I might have helped influence a little bit, but your personal attention and involvement with foundations and philanthropists that allowed us to jumpstart social emotional learning, the effort at Fine Arts in making this an arts-rich community, the efforts with ACC for early college, high school, the dual language programs that we've got. There are so many different things that we're trying to go beyond making this a testing environment. We've got to deal with the reality of public education and accountability in the state of Texas. But there are a lot of really good things going on in this district that I hope we can appreciate. And so to the new members, y'all are inheriting really again, far from perfect, but really an outstanding school district, and I would say the best, if not one of the best in the country, certainly the best in the state of Texas. So good luck with that. As trustees, you have a trustee responsibility to keep the ball moving in the right direction. I want to say thanks to my wife, Linda, and my kids, Michael, Kelsey, and Justin, as Vince mentioned, for supporting me and giving me the opportunity to do this. This has been, times of heavy lifting, but as Vince said, I got nothing else to do, so why not do it? And there's a lot of things I want to miss about this job. Generally, Monday nights are not going to be part of that list of things I'm going to miss, but dealing with the public and the community and all the opportunities that we have out there to try to make this a better district for our families, for our kids, for our taxpayers. And Linda has been incredibly supportive of me disappearing, where are you going now, what meeting are you going to, where are you off to. I can't thank you enough, Linda, for what you've done to enable me to go do that. And to the kids, I have 2 in college now. My youngest is a senior in high school. But there were events, sadly, that I missed because you have board obligations. And some of that's the nature of the job. Some of it comes with being an officer on the board, but you feel a responsibility to be there for the school district. That's part of the assumption of responsibilities. And Linda has really carried the torch for our family. And we've got 3 incredible kids, very small part due to me, large part due to her. So thank you, Linda, for all you've done for me and for our kids. I guess I want to say thanks to the board, but I got a couple things I want to call out about, and I want to say to Vince and to Lori, as my fellow officers for so many years, thank you. There is a lot of responsibility, just making sure about the board, and we say that as officers, our job is not to run the board, but to make sure the board's running, that we're trying to go in the right direction, that we don't make any decisions on behalf of the board, but we're trying to make sure that all the bases are being covered, the right things are being done, that the meetings are being scheduled. And yet that's one thing about the board, the dais, the meetings you see, but as has been alluded to, there are events that we get invited to all the time. There are a large number of district events we go to, that we're invited to, and I said this at the Up House dedication to Vince and Lori, but I'll repeat it here. They were there. They're always there. I go to these events, they're always there. Graduations, African American award ceremony, Latino Achievement Award ceremonies, community events, they are always there. And there's a responsibility and really I think an expectation as officers of the board that you're going to be there representing the district at all the events that are scheduled. And I can't thank them enough because they are always there and they don't have to be, they're sacrificing as well. I'm just fortunate that y'all have spent that much time and partners to try to make sure our board's going in the right direction. We're in a difficult time from a public education standpoint, and it's not going to get any easier. The legislature starts in 2 months, actually whatever, it's a month and a half. The budget situation is not going to be any better, much in the state of Texas. The world is changing, right? We have a human capital shortage, overused phrase, but there's not enough special ed, bilingual, math, science teachers. It's just not out there. We've got to create a situation where Austin gets more than its fair share. But we're going to have to figure out a way to do this together and in partnership. And we're sitting here in the capital city, and right or wrong, we're going to be observed during the legislative session. This is going to be a school district that people read the paper, staffers look at us, and how we handle what we need to do. And we have, and to my, I guess, a second piece of advice to the board members is, you have got to handle yourselves professionally and respectfully. Somebody said, it's okay to disagree, but do it respectfully. It is not helpful, in my view, for us to be destructive, petty, nasty to each other, to our public, to our staff especially. Having worked in 2 large organizations with over 30,000 employees in both of them, I can tell you what is not helpful is to try to humiliate a staff member out here from the dais, being unnecessarily critical, punitive, or nasty, because we want these people to go do great work. And when we say bad things about them in public, that doesn't inspire them and motivate them to go do great work. And the reality of we set the tone at the top, and you new board members are going to be dealing with some unbelievably difficult issues. I don't think the budget's going to get better. I'm not sure accountability is going to get resolved easily. The challenges of human capital there, the demographics of our school district are continuing to become more challenging with more languages spoken. Really, the education model needs to change because we know, there's one thing that we know, the education model we have today doesn't meet the needs of enough students. And we know we can't afford the model we have today based on what the taxpayers are willing to pay. So we have to change, and y'all as new board members, along with the new board, have to think of ways to get us to the new without blowing up the old, but keeping everybody moving in the same direction. It's been mentioned, I think the community can have a huge role in helping us get there, but we are a very diverse community with very diverse interests, and there's a lot of stakeholders that are going to not always be in agreement, and that's okay. We need all the input, but we have to find a way to come to common ground, to compromise. Too often in society, and we saw it in our political environment, there is, in my view, way too much demonization of people that we disagree with, even on a single issue. When in fact, we need to agree on, we may actually agree on 95% of the issues, but if somebody doesn't agree with us, we think it's okay to personally attack them. I don't think that's acceptable. This is probably not the place for it, but we have got to find a way that Austin can be unique and come together and be constructive and positive, because we are in the backyard of the state capitol, and those people are going to watch us, right or wrong, about how we behave, what we do, and they're going to use us, and we're not the favored sons of the people that are in charge of the legislature right now. So it is going to be incumbent upon the new board to work constructively with the staff and our community and all of our stakeholders in this district to try to do what's best for all of our kids, and that it's essential. Now I'm going to close by a couple of things. I want to call out Mel Waxley, who I see there. Mel and I first met when I was serving on a district committee, and long before I got on the board, and he has been an anchor for me my entire board service. Before I got on the board, I used to say Mel was general counsel to the board, and I would go to him often and say, okay, now I need, we have legal counsel questions, but I also need general counsel. And sometimes as Mel, I just needed his advice, because he was the most thoughtful person, and he actually knew our community. As many people probably know, Mel was very engaged in our community long before he got involved in the school district, and he understands the pulse of what we're doing and tried to help me in many ways. I probably didn't always take the advice very well about what to do, how to do it, and I can't thank you enough, Mel, for all that you've done for me. We've had 2 board executive assistants, which is Elaine Hopkins and Mitzi Boyles, and I can't thank both of them. They have been behind the scenes doing incredible things. As Vince mentioned, my kind of lack of punctuality, I apologize. We started a little late today. That's me. They've kept me on track. They've kept me going the right way. They've sent me reminders. They've just been, Herculean and trying to do all that they can to make me actually function a little better than I probably normally would otherwise. Barbara Saldana, which I think Christine mentioned, but one of the things that probably new board members, one of the few perks you get and the compensation you get for this otherwise unpaid job is you get to eat on occasion because you're up here in your dinners and your meetings, and Barbara has taken care of our food and our dining. So I thank her for whatever 5 pounds extra I put on over the course of my board term. There's one other person I want to mention who's not here today, which is Karen Sperry. Some of y'all may know or may not know, but she has been, she was a great person when I first came on the board, took really a lead to try to help me and maybe many other board members to get indoctrinated. Her level of effort and passion on behalf of the district, I can't thank her enough for all the time that she put in to make me a better board member and to make our district a better place. Return to our superintendents. We've had 2 since I've been here, Pat Forgione and Maria Kostarfin. And these are impossible jobs, folks. Being a superintendent in a big urban district, really any district, is an impossible job. You cannot keep everybody happy. There are too many difficult issues that have to get dealt with. But what I respect about both of them, even though everybody may not like what they did, is they were willing to push the envelope, to try to make us a better district, and in many ways took the arrows that a lot of people don't have the courage to go take. It's easy to be status quo, do nothing, but we can't afford to, either economically or for our kids, to take the status quo. And both Maria and Pat pushed us to become better districts. When Pat retired, we did a search. I still feel like when I think, and I do keep track of the pool of candidates that we looked at, I am still incredibly thankful we have Maria Kostarfin as our superintendent. I've seen where the other superintendent candidates have turned out, where they go. We are very fortunate and blessed that she came to Austin, has invested in our district, has moved us forward. Again, we're not perfect, but I think we have one of the best, if not the best, leadership team in this state and potentially in this country. As part of our board responsibilities, I get a chance to travel and go to other districts around the country and go to other conferences. And Austin is enormously respected by other education organizations, by groups that are foundations that are funding us on social and emotional learning. I mean, they come here because of this team. We can say they come here because of the board, but we're not actually doing the work. The staff is doing the work, and that's why they're here. So, Dr. Kostarfin, thank you for all your leadership, Mel, all the team. I see Lawrence and many others. I'm going to forget some people, and I apologize for that. But thank you for all you've done. New board members, good luck to you. Amber, thank you for stepping up and doing this. District 5 is a special and challenging place. And I mean, it's not unique to District 5, but I will say to all people, it is important for public education to keep the middle class in public ed. And if we don't, we lose public ed. And that is true in almost every major urban community across the country. When you look at what people may perceive as the, quote, failing school districts, which I personally hate that term, right? Because that implies that people are failing, schools are failing, kids are failing, but it's struggling, groups that are challenging. But those districts that struggle the most across the country are those that have lost the middle class. And District 5 has a lot of people in the middle class. And Amber has been willing to step up and say, how do we support keeping, meeting the needs of all of our kids while keeping the middle class? Because you lose the middle class, you lose public ed, in my view, because the people that are voting, the people at the Capitol, the people there are going to respond, and it's important. So Amber, thank you for stepping up. Doug, who's next to her and her family, you can talk to Linda and commiserate about all the challenges you're about to face, but I can't thank Amber enough for her willingness. She's dedicated herself for the last 13 years to be an incredible volunteer to our school system, and she's now taken what I think is the natural evolution to the next level. The District 5 seat is in incredibly good hands. I do believe this absolutely is that she is much better prepared to take this seat than I was 8 years ago. And for that, District 5 is fortunate. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for all of your support. And I really do believe this when I say go AISD. Okay, we're going to turn over. So they're going to turn back to Dr. Kostarfin, and I think because of the poll, I was sort of looking out in the crowd, but I'm taking an extra privilege, but I didn't see Michael Hauser. Is he out there somewhere?
Yes.
you know, we talk about this being a people business, and I should have, and I didn't, say, Michael Hauser, wherever you are, you've been actually here, and you've kept this district moving in the right direction from a people standpoint since the day you got here. A man of enormous integrity and doing the right things for the right way. So, Michael, wherever you are, and I tried to look for you, but I didn't actually see you, so my apologies for missing you earlier. Okay, Dr. Christopherson, so thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Well, before the meeting began, there was a really lovely quartet sitting right over here. It was they were also from Aikens High School. Were there quartet members who are also? Yeah, you were doing both, right? Yeah. So thank you for staying, and God, you're talented. But they were here. They work with the Austin Chamber Music Society, and so thank you so much. You were doing a lovely job, and please tell your classmates that too. But now we will have that performance from our group of Aikens classical guitarists. I've heard them before at the Chancellor's house, the Bauer House, where y'all performed with some pretty amazing guitarists. And so I know that you're very good. You started in 2008, and you're also supported by the Austin Classical Guitar Society. You've performed, like I said, where I saw you at the Butler House, but the Long Center and the One World Center and other venues. I can't remember them all. But you've also attained the first division rating at the University of Texas State Solo and Ensemble competition every year since 2009. So when we asked students for volunteers to come and play for one last time for our outgoing trustees, there were many great groups, and overwhelmingly, though, there were many people who said we had to have you here tonight. So we welcome you. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and I just want to also thank your fine arts teacher, who I hope is still here, because where is she? Kathy Bennett? Oh, there you are. Yes. So thank you again for staying up so late, and she's going to make sure you all get home as quickly as possible. So I'll turn it over to you to thank our board for all their service.
I'm thinking the board should try this tuning up before we start talking. I would have done a better job had I practiced.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us to perform for you. We are honored. My name is Kathy Bennett, and I'm the department chair for the fine arts at Aikens High School. I'm also the director of orchestras and classical guitar. And so tonight, we just wanted to say thank you for all that you have done and continue to do for us, our big school district. It doesn't go unnoticed by the staff and by the children either. We know the long hours and the stresses sometimes that go along with your job, but we appreciate it. So we're going to perform 3 selections for you tonight. One is, the first one's called a Zika Zumba, which is a traditional from South Africa. And then we'll play Etude Opus 31 by Fernando Sor, very serious as you can reflect on your time with the district. And then we will conclude our portion with Water Over Glass by Tim Brace. So again, thank you for everything that you've done for the children. I'd like to introduce you to our professional guitarist that comes to help us with the kids. He's from the Austin Classical Guitar Society, and this is Jeremy Osborne.
Mr. President,
Miss Moya.
before the students leave, I just want to take a couple of minutes of personal privilege just to say that the guitar program at Aikens has grown tremendously over the last few years under Kathy's guidance. And I want to tell you, as a classical guitar lover myself, and the fact that Aikens is in my single-member district, I want you guys to know how incredibly proud I am of the work you all are doing and continuing to do in growing the program, because we can't ever have enough classical guitarists. And to the audience, I want you to know that this is why the superintendent and the board believes that Austin needs to be an arts-rich school district. Thank y'all.
As great as that was, there's other stuff we got to do tonight. Thank you all. That was fantastic. Come back anytime. I won't be here, but come on back. We'll give them a couple minutes to mobilize and depart. Again, thank you all very much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Kathy, great job. The entire team.
Sure.
I think because I've got this one too. Okay, now for what we've all come for. We're going to move to the administration of the oath of office for the new trustees-elect for District 2, 3, 5, and at-large position number 8. It's going to be a staging area, but we're going to turn over to Dr. Christarfin, and she'll help orchestrate the next proceedings. Dr. Christarfin.
As superintendent, I wanted to welcome all of our incoming board members to the Austin Independent School District Board of Trustees. I know that each of you shares in our commitment to ensuring that all of our students in Austin have access to high-quality education that prepares them to succeed in the years ahead. From our experiences together with this current board, I can say for certain that our outgoing trustees shared this commitment, and again, on our behalf, we will miss you all. What we have next now is the administration of the oath of office for positions 2, 3, 5, and at-large 8 trustees. So with that, I will have the, help me, Melissa, how does it work? Yep, so they're going to come up.
We're going to start with
With
trustee
District 2. Okay. And do you have the notes, the little notes? The ones you were reading from. Thank you. Thanks.
Are we going to swear them all in? Good evening. I'm Gus Garcia, and Dr. Jaime Mathias was officially sworn in earlier today as trustee of Single Member District 2. Let's give him a big hand for that, okay? And it is a great honor for me to accept his invitation to repeat his oath with him at this time. So, ready?
Ready.
Raise your right hand. I, Jaime Lee Mathias.
I, Jamie Lee Mathias.
Jamie, I'm sorry. Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The duties of trustee.
The duties of trustee.
Of Single Member District 2.
Of Single Member District 2.
Of the Austin Independent School District.
of the Austin Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You're sworn in.
Thank you.
And let me just make one other comment. It's a great honor to have another former president of the Austin Independent School District and former mayor, Carol Strayhorn, with us. Carol, welcome. Who goes next?
Jamie gets, I think Jamie gets to say a couple minutes. You
gonna
want,
say a
you have a couple, pardon?
They're pulling me back.
Oh, they can pull you over there? Okay.
We can all stand behind you. Here we go. Fellow trustees, I am greatly honored to join you in serving our fine district. Members of the administration, I look forward to working with you as we address the needs of our students and families. AISD students and families and members of our community, I look forward to serving you. Mayor Garcia and Mayor Keaton Strayhorn, I am honored by your presence and support this evening. I also wish to thank my predecessor for his service to our students and to our district. In a special way, I wish to thank all who during these past months supported our campaign to provide a voice to the students and their families, a voice to our faculty, staff members, and administrators in East Austin, Dove Springs, and Travis Heights, and throughout our district. For their encouragement, I wish to express my gratitude to Cynthia Valadez Sr. and Jill Ramirez. To my chief strategist, Stephen Rivas, thank you. For the indefatigable efforts of Vincent Tovar, Stacy Smith, Dan Gatch, Tim Eubanks, Amanda Austin, Mike Corwin, our Friends of Education Austin and the American Federation of Teachers, Monica Guzman, Carl Webb, and so many others, I am indeed grateful. For the many people who supported our campaign in so many ways, for the 18 grassroots organizations, democratic clubs, and editorial staffs of local media, and for Alfredo Santos, Wally DeRoque, Eric Stumberg, Carol Keaton Strayhorn, Mercedes de Uriarte, Roy Gomez, Dadi Chapa, and so many others, thank you. And now it's time to get to work.
District 3. Come on up, Ann.
There you go.
Good evening. I'm John Hathaway, and it's my honor this evening to swear in Ann Tice as trustee of single-member District 3. And so, Ann, if you please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ann Elizabeth Tice, do solemnly swear
I, Ann Elizabeth Tite, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
the office of trustee of single-member District 3
the office of trustee of single-member District 3
of the Austin Independent School District
of the Austin Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, John. Trustees, Dr. Karstafen, I am indeed honored to be working with you. You have a great legacy for me to participate in, so I very much appreciate your support and look forward to working with those of you who will be on the board with me. I want to thank, in particular, my family standing behind me, my mother, my husband Randy, our children, Alex and Lily, and my soon-to-be son-in-law. We are all, except for my mother, who's a native German, products of Austin schools. I'm a Lanier Viking. My husband is a Reagan Raider, and our children are McCallum Knights. So we are very much products of Austin ISD, and we appreciate what the district has done for us. I also want to thank the supporters of public education. There are many in this room, and many of whom that I'm not going to be able to name at this point, and I want to kind of keep my remarks short. But supporters of public education and the public and the community, I very much appreciate your support. I also want to thank Trustee Brister for the work that she has done in District 3. She leaves some big shoes to fill, and I very much appreciate your support for the schools in District 3, and particularly for Lanier, my alma mater. I look forward to serving as a trustee in this district where I was educated, where my husband was educated, and where our children have been educated. It is the greatest district in the state of Texas, and I'm honored to be a part of the work that will help continue moving it forward. And then community, it will be an honor to work for you, to listen to you, to trust you, and to understand that you are an integral part of this district, and that your children are extremely important. They are important to me and to all of our futures. And so thank you again. I appreciate your being here, and thank you very much for your support.
District 5, come on up. And while you're coming up, I'm going to do a personal privilege and give a shout out to Aubrey. Her daughter is still in college and not home for Thanksgiving break yet.
Quiet.
I just had a question. Is it always this fun?
It could be.
All right, good evening. We are Doug and Reed Ellens, and as Mark said, Aubrey is watching right now on the webcam in New York City. Amber Ellens was officially sworn in earlier today as the trustee of single-member District 5, and is now with great honor that she has asked us to repeat her oath with her at this time. So you could rise to your right hand and repeat after me. I, Amber Russell Ellens, do solemnly swear
I, Amber Russell Ellens, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
the office of the trustee of single-member District 5
the office of the trustee of single-member District 5
of the Austin Independent School District
of the Austin Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of the state.
and of the state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so while it looks like I have no supporters relative to the other people, I would like to really point out and really thank the voters of District 5 because more than 22,000 of them came out to vote in this election. I am so proud to be part of a district that cares so much about our kids and our schools. So thank you, voters, for entrusting me and electing me to represent you. I'd also like to thank my very hardworking volunteers and supporters who, through their time and their energies and their talents, provided vision and guidance in ways I could never expect when I filed to run. So thank you very much. I know you're at home watching Channel 22. I would also like to thank my husband and my son and my daughter. Though she wasn't here, I know she was here in spirit the whole time because I'd like to thank them not only for their support in my efforts, but also their encouragement. I wouldn't have been in this race without them. From the beginning, they thought it was something I needed to do, so thank you very much for believing in me. And then finally, I would like to thank the outgoing members of the board, especially Trustee Williams. I really always respected what you did for our kids and what you did for our district, but now that I see it with fresh eyes, I really, really thank you for all the time and the energy and the devotion you've given to us, our kids, and our families here in Austin. So I'm very proud to join those of you that are still staying, and hope that I can make you proud too. Thank you.
Come on up, Gina. Mary, you're getting pretty good at this.
Do I have to introduce myself again?
Yes.
We might have new viewers.
I don't get the discounted version, Mayor.
If everybody would give me just a minute to say a few words. In Austin politics, if you win by 2 percentile points, you're considered to have a landslide victory. Now, what's significant about this one race is that Gina won with 38 percentile points. That's amazing. I've never seen a race like that. I'm Gus Garcia, and Gina was officially sworn in earlier today as a trustee of at-large position number 8. And it is now with great honor that I accept her invitation to repeat her oath with her at this time. Ready? Is it Regina or Regina?
Regina.
I, Regina Inez Hinojosa, do solemnly swear
I, Regina Inez Hinojosa, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
that I will faithfully execute the duties of
the office of trustee of at-large District 8
the office of trustee of at-large District 8
of the Austin Independent School District
of the Austin Independent School District
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend. My Spanish is getting in the way here.
preserve, protect, and defend
The Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor.
And just a small privilege here, I'd like to introduce her father, who happens to be the chairman of the Texas Democratic Party, Gilberto Hinojosa. Welcome, Judge.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
She's got her hands full.
So, Mayor, I just want to say, Mayor Garcia, how could you have expected that I would do otherwise than a landslide with you as my treasurer? That went a long way, and I really appreciate the support you gave me. Thankfully, I'm from the Valley, and so that was something we had in common, and I was very honored to have your support, and I still am, and thank you for swearing me in today. It's an honor. I'd like to thank Annette Lavoie. Annette, you rock. I will in no way fill your shoes. I am in awe of the service that you have provided our district, and the grace with which you have done it, and the smarts. And I believe what Trustee Barksdale said, that you voted your heart, your conscience every time. That is not hard for me to believe. Thank you. I'm honored to fill this seat. Don't go far, because I will be calling on you. The only reason I ran for this was because I couldn't convince you to stay. So thank you. I would like to thank my family for coming all this way from Brownsville, a 6-hour drive, to be with me here today. I'd like to thank my kids for 6 months of neglect and still being great in spite of it. My son Mateo, first thing he said when I was elected was, "So what's in this for me? what does this mean for me?" I'd also like to thank my husband for also 6 months of neglect and for picking up the slack at home, being supportive and cheering me on and never complaining. I'm so appreciative of that. Finally, I'd like to thank all my supporters. I'd like to thank you for your patience and for educating me during these last 6 months on what was important, what I needed to learn. It was a lot, and there still is a lot. I'm going to ask for your patience in the next 4 years. I've got a lot to learn, and I'm going to need your help to get there. And with that, just thanks for getting us here.
Okay, we're going to take there's going to be a break of some period of time, whatever it is, for everybody to take some photos.
15 minutes.
Yeah, it's scheduled 15 minutes, but there's some pictures and others. And then I will depart. Mr. Torres will return as the presiding officer, as the vice president, sitting vice president of the board. So I would love, this is a great honor to hand off to Vince. Thank you very much for taking it. Once again, thanks to everybody for all of their support of AISD. Congratulations to all the new trustees-elect. My kudos to the board members who are leaving, and thank you for all your service. And let's do great work for AISD. Thank you.
Oh, it's a new day. I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay, Mark's gone. Okay, board, we will now reconvene in open session at 9:20. Mr. Snyder, I believe in giving credit where credit is due, and Mr. Snyder had an excellent suggestion that we move citizens' communication to before the board election so that members of the public that are here and that want to speak at citizens' communication can go ahead and speak and go home. And since we're at the time that we would normally have a citizens' communication, we're not really having the citizens' communication at a time earlier than is posted. And so, board members, unless there is an objection from the dais, I'd like us to go ahead and move that item up. Is there anyone that? Okay, so for the members of the public, the board will move to citizens' communication. This is the time we dedicate at each regularly scheduled board meeting for public comments. Under the open meetings law and the rules of this board, there will not be a dialogue between the persons at the microphone and the dais, but we will be taking notes. In order to provide as many opportunities for input as possible within a limited time period, each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes with a maximum of 30 speakers allowed. As is the board's longstanding practice, speakers must have signed up in person and can only sign up for themselves. The board will not allow substitutions or yielding of time to others. As you come to the microphone, there is a device that will light up as you move through your 2 minutes of allotted time. When the buzzer sounds, please take the opportunity to sum up your comment so we can move on to the next person, and each person who has signed up will have the opportunity to address the board. If you wish to address the board this evening but are not called when the maximum is reached, please know that you can submit your comments in writing by email to the board at trustees@austin.org or fax at 414-1486. And whether we did not have the maximum number, so that advice is applicable whether we have the maximum number or not. We ask that whether you come to give a complaint or praise, that you reference the staff members by position or by abbreviated last name. For example, Mr. D or Mrs. A. Unless you're addressing the superintendent of schools or the board, then feel free to address us directly. The district is a local government body charged with serving the educational needs of all students, and board meetings must be focused on meeting this charge. All regular board meetings are televised and rebroadcast on AISD Cable Channel 22 over the AISD website. We ask that audience members, whether speaking or not, please show respect for others at all times. The Communication Services Department provides a Spanish language translator for audience members who need translation assistance when addressing trustees or need assistance understanding comments made to trustees during citizens' communication. If you need this service during other portions of the meeting, please speak with the interpreter. Irma Gomez will repeat this message in Spanish.
Buenas noches, vicepresidente Torres. Buenas noches a todos los demás miembros de la mesa directiva. Felicidades a los que han ingresado recientemente. Soy Irma Gómez, coordinadora de la Oficina de Servicios de Traducción e Interpretación del Distrito. Y estoy aquí disponible para interpretar los comentarios que cualquier persona del público desee exponer ante la mesa directiva. Gracias.
We're going to take a moment while Oscar sets up the timer. I'm going to be calling members of the audience who have signed up in groups of 3. The first 3 will be Christy Donmeyer, Adam Donmeyer, and Vincent Tovar. And if you'll just give it just another minute, we should be ready. I know Oscar is very fast. While Oscar's doing that, new board members, I just want to welcome you to the dais. If there's anything I can do while you're up here, please relax, enjoy yourselves, take your time, take a deep breath. Thanks so much for stepping up and for your service, and congratulations for being on the board, all of you. Okay. Christy Donmeyer.
Hello. I have 3 sons who will be in AISD schools for the next 18 years. 10 of those will be at our elementary school. So September 5th, when I was told by my principal to move from the empty lobby to a private room because I was discreetly breastfeeding my baby, I handled things with diplomacy. I sent a letter citing the state law. A mother is entitled to breastfeed her baby in any location in which the mother is authorized to be. I expressed concern that asking a mother to nurse privately stigmatizes public feeding and risks damaging that mother's breastfeeding relationship. I learned that my principal was following district practice and asked the district to adopt a new written policy upholding the state law. The new policy is essentially unchanged. AISD lawyers have interpreted the law to prohibit mothers from feeding their babies anywhere but a private room. AISD claims to support breastfeeding, but with this policy, that support ends where our rights begin. Nursing mothers who know the vulnerability of public breastfeeding know the intent of the law. In the past 5 days, over 900 people have signed a petition urging AISD to follow the law and support and respect breastfeeding mothers. We're asking for a policy that reads more like this. It is the policy of the Austin Independent School District to comply with Texas law, which protects a woman's right to breastfeed wherever she is authorized to be. A visitor will not be denied a right to be in any part of a campus that would otherwise be available to her. If she requests, a nursing mother shall be provided access to the private room designated by the campus principal to be used by nursing employees. Any offer to use this room should be made only with genuine assurances that the mother is welcome to feed her baby wherever she chooses. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Adam Donmeyer, Vincent Tovar, and Cynthia Valadez.
If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Hello, I'm Adam Donmeyer, and my wife isn't happy. Texas law says a mother is entitled to breastfeed her baby in any location in which the mother is authorized to be. But AISD doesn't let them nurse wherever they're authorized to be, stating instead, the district shall provide a parent a place other than a bathroom that is shielded from view and free from intrusion by students, employees, and the public, which shall be used to breastfeed or express milk. It's not just us. Many other parents saw this contradiction. You can read about their unhappiness on our Keep Austin Nursing in Public Facebook page, or just check your email. The chief of staff tried to reassure people when he wrote, this position is aligned with Texas law. I asked the woman who absolutely knows the law's intent, and she wrote me, as the legislator who authored and passed the original state law on breastfeeding, I can assure you that our primary goals were to encourage breastfeeding for the health of baby, the mother, and the society that must pay the costs for illness among our populace. Most importantly, we want to educate young women as to the benefits of natural child feeding and to normalize this most normal and loving act in our society's opinion. I can think of no place more important than in a school to pursue that educational function and that nurturing, loving act. My hope is that all those children go home to their new baby brothers and sisters, enjoying all the proven benefits, and themselves grow up to be responsible parents of healthy, well-nourished children of their own. I am surprised that any pro-family elected official would attempt to stigmatize this most normal act. You swore to uphold Texas law. Please make Mama happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Chovar, Cynthia Valadez, Tony Rayner.
I'm Vincent Tovar. I'm a Go Valley dad. My community's not happy. There's an issue that's still alive. There's a symbolic representation of an East Austin community that still feels disrespected by this school district. And it's on the northwest corner of Shady and Gonzalez Streets. If you don't have to drive by them, then it's not going to bother you as much. We know Idea Allen students have left Idea Allen, but how many? And where did they go? Ask the questions. We know some went to Martin, special ed students. Why? Ask the questions. Why has there been zero progress when it comes to tracking the Eastside Memorial vertical team students? Ask the questions. And when I say we know about special ed students, because families are telling us. We know IDEA only met 91% enrollment and maybe even less in its first week of school. But why? How much money was spent on billboards, radio, and TV ads? How much time was spent on aggressive recruitment that included lies, harassment via repeated phone calls, and scores of parents who sent in opt-out letters that weren't received? We know IDEA only had 93% attendance in its second 6-week cycle. We know IDEA only had 93% attendance in its second 6-week cycle, which is less than Go Valley's 96%. But do you remember that IDEA is paying to bus kids from outside the community, and they have their own PT Cruiser going and picking up kids, 93%, less than 96. And more than 75% of its population isn't even our community. IDEA's contract can be put on the agenda for the December 17th regular board meeting. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Ask the questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Valadez, Tony Rayner, Marianne Baker.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. We are here today to celebrate a new day. Congratulations, felicidades, bienvenidos, and welcome to AISD. We applaud your success and look forward to working with you in open, transparent dialogue as we work together to resolve the issues such as the high Latino or L dropout rate, the failure to close the academic achievement gap, the development of educational silos, privatized education, and the failure to engage AISD parents and students in a meaningful manner so that implementation of appropriate systemic changes will allow for the alignment of culturally competent, proven curriculums that benefit all students. Today we ask you to consider item 11.1, the MOU between the University of Louisiana at Monroe, Department of Speech Language Pathology, and AISD. Why does it appear as if we're recruiting college students from Louisiana to come to AISD and provide them with internships and practical clinical experience? What are the costs associated with this partnership? Why are we providing this invaluable experience to students from another state, if not culture, when we have the University of Texas and Texas State University students living within close proximity, are local taxpayers, and have a shared history experience with the student and community demographic that they will ultimately serve? These opportunities are actual grow your own practices that research has determined to be the most successful. LULAC, MALDEF, and other organizations came together with AISD and stopped or tried to stop the AISD attempt to circumvent best practices and the equal educational opportunity laws by denying bilingual speech therapy to our Ls in special education, by entering into contracts with private corporations that did not have culturally competent therapists, and by forcing English speech therapy time on our special ed Ls. We ask that you please consider that what our Ls need are bilingual speech therapists. If you're going to enter into an agreement with the University of Louisiana at Monroe, please make sure that you include the terms bilingual and culturally competent to this community
Please wrap up.
in the kinds of students that you will be allowing to have those opportunities. Thank you very much and welcome to AISD.
Thank you. Tony Rayner, Mary Ann Baker, Montserrat Garibay.
Got my happy hat. Hi. Go Panthers! Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Rayner. I'm a parent of two at Eastside Memorial High School, Panthers. And one of the things over the years that I have found the most frustrating was to go to public meeting after public meeting after public meeting and spend hours putting dots on charts and choosing different colored cards. And where did the data go? AISD has made a much better effort very recently to increase its community engagement, and I applaud that. But I also know that over the last 3 years, I've gone to at least a dozen community input meetings, several of them on our campus, and where did the data go? One thing I'm finding interesting, I came across this book, very pretty book actually, Rigorous Curriculum for College, Career, and Life Readiness. Page 24, Division of Special Programs, preparing students includes certain bullet points. All people have inherent worth and should be treated with respect. Teaching and learning flourish in clean, disciplined, nurturing, and safe environments, not schools that are flipped every year, like Pierce, God bless them, and Eastside Memorial. Family, school, and community are vital partners in development of students. Implementation of clear standards for learning supports continuous improvement of student achievement. Transparency and accountability are essential for achieving improvement, almost done. And fiscal responsibility requires targeting resources for improvement of education and accurately evaluating their effect. And finally, last bullet point, every individual has a responsibility to contribute to the community. I love it. We need to have a big poster on the wall. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ann Baker, Montserrat Garibay, and Monica Guzman.
I'm Mary Ann Baker. I'm here as a mother myself and representing the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition. Texas Health and Safety Code Section 165.02 is entitled Right to Breastfeed. A mother's entitled to breastfeed her baby in any location in which the mother is authorized to be. Yet AISD policy requires that a mother caught breastfeeding shall be sent to a location that's shielded from view. I submit that this policy violates Texas law. Now, I'm a lawyer, but it doesn't take a lawyer to understand this law. Right to breastfeed. A mother's entitled to breastfeed her baby in any location in which the mother's authorized to be. If a mother's allowed to shop at the mall or the grocery store, she's entitled to nurse her baby there. If she's allowed to visit the park, a library, a school playground, she has the right to nurse her baby there. We have moms breastfeeding at legislative hearings. You know, it's great and required by federal law that AISD provides a place for employees, including teachers, to pump milk or nurse their babies. And it's nice that you allow visiting moms to nurse there too if they wish. But providing a room for working moms to pump milk is a different thing from requiring that visiting mothers nurse their babies there. The Texas Right to Breastfeed statute does not limit the places to which it applies. It grants the mother the right to feed her baby in any location she's authorized to be. Wherever on campus a school allows parents to be, mothers are authorized to be. And if a mother is authorized to be there, then she has the right to breastfeed there. It's unfortunately true that seeing a mother feed her baby makes some people uncomfortable. It's also true that seeing interracial couples or seriously disabled people makes some people uncomfortable. But that is not sufficient reason to segregate them or deprive them of their legal rights. Just as with separate but equal schools, segregation generates feelings of shame that may affect mothers in profound ways, leading them to deprive their babies of the most crucial source of health and nutrition available. I respectfully ask you to reconsider this policy and rewrite it to allow a mother to breastfeed her baby wherever she's allowed to be on any AISD property. Thank you.
Thank you. Montserrat Garibay, Monica Guzman, Ken Surface.
Good evening and welcome, Board of Trustees. My name is Montserrat Garibay, and I am the Vice President for Certified Employees with Education Austin. I am a National Board Certified teacher, and I taught pre-K for 8 years here in AISD. My activism and advocacy for full-day pre-K program started many years ago when the Education Austin started the pre-K committee, and we started to advocate for the full-day pre-K program. We strongly believe that working with the community is essential to keep this program. Our members met with board members, teachers, parents, and community leaders. The outcomes of these wonderful meetings were just a great success. The leadership and support on behalf of the board members and the superintendent on keeping the full-day pre-K program has been a blessing for our most precious assets, our pre-K kids. On behalf of our pre-K members, of our Education Austin members, I would like to thank you for your support for the full-day pre-K program and for considering lowering the number for the pre-K students in a class to 19 and for wanting to hire 17 teachers for the next school year. Quality education requires true investment on education. And the Education Austin members are proud that AISD is supporting the full-day pre-K program, a program that is high quality and it's rigorous. This is just one example that when we work together, we can accomplish many great things. We're very happy that y'all were elected to. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Guzman, Ken Serafis, Claire Roeder.
I'm Monica Guzman, native Austinite and a community member in District 2. Excuse me. Esteemed board members, good evening and thank you for this opportunity to speak. I want to bring to your attention the issue of communicating with the AISD community as a whole, East Austin and District 2 specifically. More than once during the elections, I raised the issue of communication within the community. There may be a district website, email addresses, but that doesn't mean we all have access. While there is no way to obtain an accurate percentage, a large portion of East Austin is across the digital divide. I want to know, how does this board, especially trustees for Districts 2 and 8, plan to communicate with them? There cannot be assumptions they all have access to the internet, email, and/or own a computer, much less know how to use them. In order to be truly transparent and in full communication excuse me, with them, there must be offline communication, be it print media, TV, radio, flyers sent home with the students, and in-person dialogue. It must also be bilingual. In order to gain, regain, or maintain their trust, it's necessary to go to them. I'm optimistically confident this board will step up to the task, not let us down. I look forward to working with the board in achieving goals set forth by those of us who elected you, those of us whom you represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Serafis, Claire Roeder, Lauren Reyes.
Good evening. My name is Ken Zarafis. I'm president of Education Austin, the Teacher and School Employees Union for AISD. And this is a good night. I want to thank the former members for their service on the board. I know they're not here, but this is not an easy job. Regardless of our differences or disagreements, this is not an easy job, and we understand that. And we respect anybody that gives the time and volunteers to do this work. I want to welcome the new members to this board and the time and service you're going to be giving this community, the teachers, and most importantly, the students of this great district. Thank you very much for your willingness to run and your time on the board. Thank you. Democracy is a wonderful thing. It's really pretty incredible. We all brag about it. We're all real happy about it. But sometimes it can be kind of messy. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable. But the one thing it usually is truly a voice of the people. It's something that we admire, it's something that we respect, and it's something that we hold dear in this country at every level, be it a small little union election all the way up to the presidential election, and most importantly tonight, the board elections. It's a little messy and it can be uncomfortable, but it is definitely the voice of the people. And I think that that's what's important. The people chose to elect individuals to this board because this is who they want to lead them. But not just lead them, but to listen to them. You need to lead, but you need to listen. And that goes for all of us in elected office. We're here to help. We're here to support. I applaud you for your courage, your willingness to serve your community, the teachers, the parents, and most importantly, the kids of this district. Because there's a lot of decisions that have to be made in the coming months, coming days, and coming years. And I have every faith that you'll be able to achieve those goals and to listen and act accordingly for the community of AISD. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Claire Reuter, Lauren Reyes, Christine Keller.
Raise your hand if you care about the sexual preference of our board members. Anybody? Okay, that's what I thought. So please, let's move on with the business of serving our children and saving our schools. Thank you. In this fall season, we are rejoicefully turning over a new leaf with our new board members who were elected because they believe in listening to the community. The outside charter school called IDEA did not listen to our community. They only listened to the superintendent who had some private reasons for bringing them in, and they listened to the school board members who voted for them, but they did not listen to the families and the teachers in our community. And they turned Allen Elementary into a private school because, I say private because we don't know what's going on. And it doesn't have a local publicly elected board. And they renamed it IDEA Allen In-District Charter School. If you want to privatize something, privatize sexual orientation. Privatize where we go to church. Don't come barging into our East Side churches like you did to try to sell a bad idea. Privatize these personal choices of who we choose to be in relationship with and where we choose to worship. But don't privatize our public schools like Allen, especially when it goes against the wishes and professional judgment of the families and staff. Let the new era begin as we open our hearts and minds to serving our beloved children and their families in our communities. To the old board members, to the new board members, to the superintendent, thank you for your service and welcome on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Reyes, Kristen Keller, Megan Buchanan.
Hello, greeting members of the board and attendees. My name is Lauren Reyes. I'm a mother of 3 AISD students and a board-certified lactation consultant. I have breastfed my children at PTO meetings, on playgrounds, and at parent-teacher conferences. My work calls me to serve breastfeeding mothers and their sweet babies in their journey to learn to breastfeed successfully. One of the major barriers that American mothers face is the fear of becoming discriminated against in public. In fact, it is one of the main reasons that the majority of American women do not meet their breastfeeding goals. In my work, it is my job to inform families of the right to breastfeed law, which grants breastfeeding mothers the right to breastfeed in any location in which they are authorized to be, and to reassure them that we as a community are here to celebrate and protect their efforts to do what is best for their babies. Sadly, I recently had to look into the face of a breastfeeding mother named Christy Dawnmeyer while she cried as she recounted her experience of being segregated and shamed in an AISD facility simply for breastfeeding. I must admit that I'm simultaneously ashamed and enraged at AISD for so grossly misinterpreting the law in the deluded concept that the law is meant to protect those few that have wrongly sexualized breasts. The fact is that the law is meant to protect the most vulnerable and important members of society, mothers and babies. Please remember when reviewing this issue that it was not that long ago that being Black or Latino was socially unacceptable. I hope we don't all look back on this with the same shame and regret that we do when we remember how school systems failed to do the right thing then. The breastfeeding law is clear in its intent. All mothers have the right to breastfeed where they are authorized to be, and to conclude otherwise eviscerates the clear intent, spirit, and letter of the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Keller, Megan Buchanan, Alexia Haywood.
Hi. I don't think I need to say anything about why I'm here. I think it's pretty obvious, but I don't feel like I need to repeat the law. But what I did want to say is that if you think about what you do to a mom when you ask her to go to privacy, because if she's there to pick up a child, if she's there to chaperone, if she's there to supervise, you just lost that person's ability to do any of those things because they're not visible. The other thing is if you think about, I don't know about you guys, but I'm an animal lover. If you think about animals like dogs or cats or kittens, it's actually animal abuse or animal cruelty if you take them away from their moms before 6 weeks, because there's that rule of 6 weeks. That's actually 80% of their first year of life. So by asking a mom to breastfeed in privacy, you do risk the relationship between mom and baby. You also have to think about that breastfed babies don't just come with baby bottles, and it's not that easy just to whip out a bottle and feed a breastfed baby. So instead of asking mothers to go and hide and breastfeed, I think it could be turned around and you could support breastfeeding mothers and use it as an opportunity for nutrition education, because it's a way to show our future generations that it's not just best, it's normal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Megan Buchanan and Alexia Haywood.
And I want to echo what she was saying. I think that would be fabulous for teen parents on my campus, at least, to have that as a model and to know that breastfeeding is normal and natural. But what I'm here for is I went to an Eastside Youth Movement youth-led school board candidate forum at Reagan last month. It was co-hosted by Out Youth. And so I took some notes and I thought that I would pass them on so that you can take them into context as you're working as a new board moving forward. I don't want this to feel like a laundry list of complaints from the students, but more of a window into their perspective. I hope you take their concerns and questions into consideration as you move forward. The candidates and other people who attended the event can attest to how incredible and thoughtful the students' questions were. The students are also happy to meet with you to discuss these issues. They couldn't be here tonight to invite you personally, but they know that I'm here doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Alexia Haywood.
Good evening. My name is Alexia Haywood, and I'm also here to speak to AISD's breastfeeding policy. Mr. W. at Central Office assures me that AISD does support breastfeeding, and you know, I do believe him. I can see that AISD's current breastfeeding policy respects people's feelings on both sides of the issue. I'm sure that finding solutions that respect all parties serves AISD well in the majority of cases. The difference in this situation is, of course, that there's a state law addressing breastfeeding in public already in place. So in my eyes, the only sticking point, if you will, is the law itself and the phrase authorized to be. In an email to me, Mr. W. stated, and I quote, "I respectfully disagree with you that the district's policy is in violation of state law. The phrase authorized to be does not allow a mom to breastfeed anywhere on campus, but rather where authorized to be by the district on campus," end quote. I respectfully still contend that the policy is in fact in violation of state law. The law makes it clear that breastfeeding in public is not unlawful or inappropriate and is in place to protect mothers and babies and not anyone who may be uncomfortable or offended. And I'm going to call it like I see it here and say that asking a mother to move to nurse in private is blatant discrimination. You wouldn't ask a mother to give a baby a bottle in private. And we came across a very similar case in Florida, and I'd like to borrow some words from a lawyer on behalf of the nursing mother. And quote, "Because Ms. Taylor's conduct is totally lawful and indeed encouraged by law, two things are undeniable. First, that Ms. Taylor has a right to be where any other law-abiding parent is authorized to be on school property. And second, if parents are authorized to be at a certain location within school property, then Ms. Taylor has an unqualified right to breastfeed at that location, and her access to that location on school property cannot be restricted because she engages in such lawful and protected activity on school property." In conclusion, I urge AISD to rethink its policy. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of us who've begun communicating with each other about this issue in the last week, and momentum is growing fast. And I want to thank you very much for your time. I've enjoyed listening to your stories here tonight, and I thank you for listening to ours.
Thank you. Dr. Sarfin, there have been a few comments and concerns expressed during citizens' communication. If you would look into those and get back to the board at a later point in time. Thank you. Okay, at this time, board members, we're going to go back to the election of officers. And a couple of things I want to just mention so that I don't miss anyone. First of all, if you wish to be recognized, just raise your hand or stick it out there. It's a little harder for me to see some of the folks back here, so please don't hesitate to shout out if I missed you. If you are recognized, I remind you that there's a button here on the microphone. Please push the button until it lights up, and then after you've finished speaking, depress the button again so that we won't catch any extraneous conversation if you happen to leave it on. Okay, as I mentioned, we're now going to move to the item of business, which is the issue of board member election of officers. It is required by our policies BDA-A legal and BDA-A local. I believe those policies were provided to everyone in their Thursday board weekly update and provide, among other things, the duties of each office. We'll begin the electing of a president, vice president, and then move to secretary. But before we begin that process and open it up for nominations, I want to provide just a couple of explanations and some information, primarily for the benefit of the new board members. First of all, one of the things that we have in the Open Meetings Act is if for some reason, well, first of all, according to the Open Meetings Act, all of our business and discussion should be carried out in public, including the actions and the voting of the board. However, there is one exception to the, or there's several exceptions where the board can move to closed session or executive session as referred to, where we can discuss a limited amount of topics, and those topics have to be identified in advance, and we must limit the discussion in executive session to those items. And what I'd like to do at this time is ask the General Counsel for the board, Ms. Chris Elizalde, to come up and just give us a very brief definition, if you will, of the executive session as it might apply to board officer elections. And then at that point in time, if the board members would like to move to executive session to discuss the items that are specifically allowed by executive session, we will do that. Otherwise, we will not move to executive session. But if you could just give us a quick summary of how executive session might be used for officer elections, Ms. Elizalde.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Be happy to do that. Board members, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but primarily I'm going to focus on just the provision in the Open Meetings Act that allows you to go into closed session if you choose to talk about individual employees or officers, and that's the same provision in the Open Meetings Act. It's section 551.074 of the Government Code. And what it allows you to do is to talk about individuals if there is a need for a discussion about individuals who might be good for a particular office, who might be interested in a particular office, but we don't know for sure. Individual officers of the board, in this case the board members, can be discussed in closed session. However, if you want to talk about process, how do we do this, where do we go from here, process and procedures have to be done and have to be discussed in public session, in open session. So your public will be able to understand your thought processes and hear your deliberation about how you want to go about it. So if at any point in your discussions you are inclined to talk about individuals who might be interested for a particular office, pros and cons of a particular individual, strengths and weaknesses of a particular individual, that kind of discussion can be done in closed session. Does that answer?
Yes, and just to clarify, you say that can be done. It doesn't have to be done. It's an option that we have, but it's not a requirement.
Correct. The Open Meetings Act gives you the authorization to go into that closed session to have those discussions. Correct.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Elizalde? Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Snyder.
Day late and a dollar short. Chris, if you could come up here, please. Just to make sure that I am clear on certain points, and I want to verify my understanding of what law requires and what practice allows.
Okay.
Okay. This board has traditionally done election of board officers at turnover in the board. In other words, new board members coming on, old board members coming off. And I believe my understanding of my discussion with you on this topic is that we are required by law to do so at least every 2 years when there is such a change on the board. Is that correct?
You're required to do it whenever there is a board election, yes.
Okay. So
And in this case, yes, 2 years. In some districts, it's once a year. I mean, it just depends on when they have their elections.
okay, so just theoretically, if there was 3-year terms on the board and there was 3 on, 3 off, there would be an every year requirement.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Practice allows us to do something that would be a little bit shorter in time frame, annually or at any other interval we would choose to do so. Is that correct?
Actually, the law does allow what is called reorganization of the board more frequently if the board so chooses. In fact, there's a specific Attorney General opinion on the topic that says that it allows that the law allows the board to choose to reorganize at any other time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I have just a curiosity about that. How would that happen? How would the board choose to reorganize, and what would prompt that?
Any number of things can prompt that. Sometimes there's an officer who no longer wishes to serve. Sometimes the board believes that someone else needs to be in a particular office. Sometimes there's a resignation off the board before election time comes up, and so there's a vacancy in one of the board officer positions. So there's any number of reasons for choosing to do it more frequently. It doesn't happen very often, but it can.
Okay. And so, if I may, for this board, if there was the desire to do it without an absence of per se, just the board felt there was a need to reorganize, how would that be initiated?
An item would be placed on the agenda to have a board reorganization, much like you've done tonight. The only difference is it wouldn't be along with all of the oaths and the election issues, but you'd have an item on the agenda for reorganization of the board and election of new officers, or consideration of election of officers.
Okay.
So by your regular process for getting an item on the agenda, that could happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I leave?
Dr. Mathias?
This question doesn't deal with closed sessions, but it deals with the legalities. So we as a board need to consider officers this evening.
Yes.
And we're aware of the fact that we have some at-large members and some of us who represent geographical districts. Are there any legal considerations of which we should be aware in the selection of officers, whether they be from at-large or geographic representations? Are there any Department of Justice injunctions or anything that we need to know about regarding the intent of the law as it was created, that at-large members preside over us? How's that for a question?
I think what your question is, I think I understand your question, whether or not you're restricted from selecting, in any way, from selecting particular spots, positions of people in particular geographic districts or at large. You're not restricted in that way. Years ago, Austin ISD did have a restriction in state law that was specific to Austin that did restrict the board, and in fact, officers were elected by the public. Certain officers were elected by the public. That is no longer the law. Well, that law is no longer in place. And so Austin ISD board is at liberty to choose any person on this board to serve in any position.
Thank you.
So you don't have that restriction. The Department of Justice issue would only come up with regard to an election, not a general election of the board, not an election of officers.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Elizalde? Okay.
All right, thanks.
Before I ask if we want to move to executive session, I want to just cover one other process item. We are going to be electing officers one at a time in the order of president, vice president, and secretary. In just a moment, I'll open up, if we don't go into executive session, I'll open up the nominations for president. But before that, I just want to explain that the way our process has been in the past, and the president of this board, is that a candidate must receive a majority of the votes cast by those members present. For instance, if there are 2 people nominated, then the person that receives the majority of the votes would be elected. If 3 people were nominated, then one of those folks would have to receive a majority of the votes. If they did not, then one person would be eliminated and there would be a runoff for the other 2. So just once again, this is just process. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Owens.
So to be nominated, does it require a second?
Ms. Elizalde? I believe that our practice is that you do not have to have a second.
And then is rationale presented?
I'm sorry?
Is rationale presented
You might.
in the nomination?
You would do that in the nomination. Okay, any questions about the process of the election of officers? Okay, now I'm going to ask a question. Do any of the board members wish to move to executive session to conduct any of the discussion for the limited reasons that Ms. Elizalde described? Ms. Barksdale.
I have a question that I think is more appropriate for executive session, but I will yield if everyone.
Okay. Mr. Schneider.
I also agree that I think it'd be better to discuss issues
Okay.
in executive session.
Okay. Given that 2 board members would like to move to executive session, at this time the board will move to closed session and reconvene whenever we're finished. The board will now reconvene in open session at 11:20. Okay, we were at the point, unless board members have any other questions about process, we were at the point of opening the floor for nominations for the office of president. Mr. Snyder, do you have a question?
A comment about process,
Okay.
which I would think that would be the appropriate place to put it.
Okay.
This is the 4th time that I have been involved in this process where the board has elected officers. It's gone various ways in terms of the actual mechanics and when things got done and who was doing them and all that other kind of good stuff. But I've definitely got some opinions. I mean, when you've been on the board for 10 years, you get opinions. That's what the rules say as it was. Sorry, I got to bother pen. But I know the topic about frequency of board officer elections and how a method might be established of easing some of the difficulties that we currently have to deal with has been brought up from time to time. I know that just in the last 6 months, there have been 1, 2, 3 board members that have been interested in having a more in-depth discussion about this, possibly looking at ways of doing it. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, those meetings that would have discussed that, either through the policy changes that would be required or through simply putting it on a calendar where it was available for the board to discuss, never happened. Another thing that I regret about this particular election is that in the past, the board has had the opportunity to meet and discuss things with candidates in a board-like setting. Last one I can remember, and I think Mr. Torres and Ms. Moya and Ms. Bradley, if she's still with us, might be able, sorry Cheryl, it's late for me tonight. We did not have that opportunity this time around. And I would hope that this board will now go about setting a process where we have a discussion about these issues, how we want to work them out, and set things up for when this happens a minimum of 2 years from now, if not sooner. So I would request that we look at putting that on an agenda item for board discussion, and if it's the will of the board to continue the discussion, we might, get further involved in talking about policy issues that are involved and the other kind of things that goes on. But I do think that we ought to at least hear what the ideas are, make some kind of decision about where to move forward or what to do, not do, those kinds of things. So that is my comment.
Okay, thank you. So noted. Any other comments or questions about the election of officers? Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to open up the floor for nominations for the office of president of the board.
Mr. Torres,
Ms. Bradley?
I would like to nominate Mr. Vincent Torres for president of the board.
Thank you. Any other nominations for president of the board? Okay, we have one nomination. All those in favor of the president of the board, raise your right hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? So I'm elected 8-1. All right, I'm going to now open up the, thank you. I'm going to open up the nominations for the office of vice president of the board.
Mr. Torres?
Ms. Teisch.
I'd like to nominate Trustee Gina Hinojosa for Vice President.
Ms. Hinojosa, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice president of the board? Okay. I see no other nominations for vice president of the board. All those in favor of Gina Hinojosa for vice president of the board, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Any abstentions? So we have 8 to no one against and 1 abstention. Ms. Bradley. Okay, now we're going to open up the nominations for secretary of the board.
Mr. Torres,
Ms. Bradley.
President Torres, I would like to nominate Lori Moya for secretary of the board.
Ms. Moya, do you accept? Any other nominations for secretary? Ms. Teisch.
Mr. Torres, I'd like to nominate Reverend Dr. Jamie Mathias as secretary.
Dr. Mathias, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
Okay, any other nominations for secretary of the board? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of Ms. Moya, I will announce the candidates in the order that they were nominated. All those in favor of Ms. Moya for Secretary of the Board, please raise your right hand. All those in favor of Dr. Matthias as Secretary of the Board? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Dr. Matthias, you are new Secretary of the Board. Okay. With that, we have concluded our officers. Officers will have a meeting at 2 o'clock after this meeting. No, just kidding. Okay, we will now move.
Flores, you're saying we will be done by 2, is that?
Yeah, you're assuming we'll be done by 2, right? Okay, we will now move to the the consent agenda. And does anyone have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Ms. Hinojosa?
Yes, I just need some clarification. So, are you at number 8 on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. And the actual details of the consent agenda begin on item 11 on the.
Okay, so number 9 is not on the consent agenda?
No.
So if I wanted to ask to pull something off the consent agenda that's listed under like number 11 on the agenda, do I need to do that now?
Yes.
Oh, now, okay.
Yep. Mhm. And
Okay.
just in terms of process, normally we would have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item X, which we'd want to pull either for a separate vote, or simply if you just have questions about that particular item, you can ask questions about that particular item to get clarification. So
Okay.
if you just have questions, we can entertain them before we have the motion, but if you want to pull it for either a separate vote or separate discussion, if you could just let us know so that we know how to frame the motion.
What if I don't know until I hear my questions answered?
Then go ahead and ask your questions. We'll
Okay.
we'll ask your questions. So do you want to go ahead and ask your question now?
If you could give me a moment, if somebody else has something.
Okay, let me ask Dr. Matthias. Dr. Matthias?
I'm thinking that we as new board members are not up to speed on some of these. I think we would appreciate some clarification and/or conversation on 11.1 and 11.2. 11.1 was brought up in a citizen's communication. 11.2, there was just one note that I made about that plan that I'd like to bring up at some point. 13.4 and 13.5, 13.4 and actually 14.1 both deal with bids and proposals, and as a new board member, I certainly would welcome some conversation about those before we approve them. 13.5 and 9.2 were on the consent agenda, both have to do with budget. It's important for us as new board members to be brought up to speed quickly on budget before we're voting extensively on the budget.
What was it?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So that, to summarize then,
Okay.
I'm suggesting 11.1, 11.2, 13.4, 13.5, and 14.1.
Okay.
And if 9.2 were on the consent agenda, it would be important for us to
Okay,
have
so
some dialogue about that.
if I can ask Dr. Starfman or staff to, you wanted to, okay?
May I have the question, please, for 11.1? What is the question?
The concern that we heard in citizens' communication had largely to do with the bilingual nature of our speech therapy and therapist program, whether they're culturally competent, the cost of the program, and why we're going out of state. So I was just thinking before we have a vote on that, if there's a way for us to address those concerns, that would be helpful, I think, at least to the public.
Great. Dr. Dow, if you'd like to join me, but first, while she's coming up, for this actual memorandum of understanding, we have a few universities that we work with. University of Louisiana is one. We work with University of Texas here in Austin, Texas State, Mississippi, and there are others that contact us all the time. It is an opportunity for graduate students to continue working on their requirements for their master's degrees. And yes, we do have, existing staff that work with us who are bilingual in this area, but it is not uncommon for teaching or many other areas, even administration. We have partnerships with universities where we can actually help create pathways and recruit people for some of these hard-to-fill positions. But and I guess when I asked my question about what is the question, I thought this just wanted to be sure that Ms. Hinojosa, did you have a specific question as well as it related to this one? Or was it?
The question was about whether this contract addresses or what are the considerations for bilingual students who need these services. Does this address that?
This is a part of a way for us to create a pathway. But go ahead if you want to add anything else to this.
Okay, sure, Mr. President, trustees, Dr. Karstarfin. Essentially, the reason we have this is because the students who are wanting to come back to do their internships here either live in this community or live in communities nearby. And so they want to be able to come back to Austin ISD to have the internship experience. And so we get these requests from universities, several universities, as Dr. Karstarfin mentioned. In the case of this particular contract, it's for 2 students that we're proposing be placed in an appropriate setting, supervised by an appropriate staff member. And certainly, if these 2 students, I don't know at this point if they're bilingual and what their background is in terms of how culturally relevant their experience is, they would be placed in the appropriate setting. So if they're not bilingual, they would not be serving students who require bilingual services. The other, I think there was a question possibly raised during the public comment about what's this going to cost to AISD. There is no cost to AISD as a result of this. It's also a great benefit, by the way, to AISD because it's an opportunity to really see some of these students in action, to get a feel for whether or not they're a good fit, and allows us to have sort of first dibs, if you will, on whether or not we'd like to possibly consider them for future hire in a position that might be open where they are a good fit.
In this current school year, we hired, there were 17, less than 20, but around 17, and 12 of them actually came out of internship programs like this. So I think, I can't remember if it was Mr. Williams on his way out or when he was doing his exit speech, until you have to go through the hiring process of a large urban district where everybody's fighting for the best people who have these kinds of unique skills, and we don't pay the best in the region, you'll see why we are constantly looking for ways to bring new talent into AISD that have a commitment to Austin and a commitment to urban kids.
Ms. Owens.
So just to clarify, by allowing these students to come intern in our programs, we're not displacing any current teachers or staff, or it's keeping us from hiring new people. We're doing a service to them and learning from them.
Exactly, exactly. And I might add, the opportunity to partner with the universities also allows Austin AISD to sort of have these leading edge, cutting edge strategies and innovations, because we have that connection with the university and the students, professors, et cetera.
Ms. Tice.
When we seek out these partnerships with universities beyond this particular one, do we have any language that states that we are encouraging, we are looking for bilingual people?
Well, we typically don't seek out the opportunity. The university seeks us out.
Okay.
And as I stated, it's, mostly because the students want to come and internship in a very diverse, large urban, such as Austin ISD, and in many cases because they live either in Austin or close to Austin.
Any other questions on 11.1? Okay. 11.2. What was your question, Dr. Mathias?
Before I state my question, I would want to publicly praise our superintendent. We had our board packets delivered on Thursday evening, and I sent several questions in her direction, and she responded, she and her staff, with many pages of answers for us as new board members. So thank you, Dr. Karstafen, for those explanations. This was one section that I was not able to get my questions to her, and it was simply that we're under the tab that's consent academics. Page 15 of 16, the report shows that there are perhaps desired ways in which we might want to improve our dropout prevention and recovery as a district, but I didn't see any of that reflected in our plan. So I simply wanted to raise the question as to whether that might be part, if not of this plan, how it is that we as a district might plan to address dropout prevention and recovery, because certain various challenges are cited on page 15 of 16. And the question I think that we would have as board members is how are we as a district planning to address those challenges?
Right. So Texas is a fairly, inflexible state sometimes in the way that we have to do reporting. This is one of the few plans, if you will, that we would call an integrated plan. You will find over the course of the year, less now than there were before. There were many plans that the state would ask for. We'd have to send them in individually, and then you're kind of duplicating work multiple times. There were many of the districts, shared that with our education agency, and so this one is more integrated, right? But we are limited by the way they set up the input system for some of these things, and we've gone over that. Some, like there's not a drop-down menu that you can fill in. I mean, it's very inflexible, depending on the issue that you're talking about. But the intervention plans for this one is mostly focused on reading, math. It does have the graduation piece, the bilingual and CTE and special ed. So under graduation rate, I've got to find my page that I had earmarked. Hold on. On page 21, and they're not asking you for a lot of stuff, all the way, but when they talk about credit recovery, that's part of our dropout strategy. If they talk about the acceleration of our ability to take work that we're doing right now, this is where you will see most of those things. And I'm on page 21, 9 of 16 for those who are interested. It doesn't summarize absolutely everything that we're doing. So another piece that I would say that's part of our graduation rate efforts is on page 23, the part about college planning. It's also, you'll see as one of your board priorities. We talk a lot about one of your goals is college career and life readiness. So we have a section in there. So it's not as specific, but we are kind of limited to the ways they kind of box us in for inputting these kinds of plans. I'd also say the counseling piece at the end of that page has to do with dropout and graduation work, and I'm going to keep going around culture. No, not so much. You see how they said it, like, does the district have? And then they let it. So look on page 27. It says, does the district have an effective dropout prevention program? So that's another place. Right. So if you kind of keep going through them, you'll see probably in several different sections multiple ways to answer one thing, but they don't say specifically, in one place how are you working to increase your graduation rate, or at least their forms aren't that easy to follow.
Thank you. From my perspective, it's simply if the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce has set the magnificent goal of a 90% graduation rate, so it seems that dropout prevention and recovery is part and parcel. And so this is only our first meeting. It would be great for us to return to this conversation. in
and,
future meetings.
Yeah, and another one is on page 32. It's, and this drop down, they let you actually use the word graduation, but it's tied to their targeted area by that name. Whereas in the first section, they lead with those questions, those systems questions, so. But we'll talk a lot about graduation rates and dropout rates.
Ms. Hinojosa.
Along those same lines, there is a deficiency that is stated in the report on positive behavioral support, or that at
Can you
least.
give me a page number where
Yeah, let's see. $13 of 16.
Page 25.
Right, the last.
Mm-hmm.
Page 25. But I also don't notice it referenced in the plan. And it's important to me because it's something that I've heard a lot about in the community, and concern about behavior management within the classroom. And so I was wondering why it wasn't in the report.
Why what wasn't in the report? I'm sorry.
How to address it in the plan. Wasn't in the plan.
Positive behavioral support,
Mhm.
PBS, it is.
Okay, I didn't see it. Can you
Yeah,
point that out to me?
Right there underneath the section that says, that's the description right next to it?
That's the deficiency, right? And then on page 29 is the improvement plan.
No, I understand that, but I guess I'm still trying to understand. You're saying that from your read on the improvement plan, that we're not acknowledging that we're doing PBS?
I don't see it in the improvement plan. Maybe I missed it.
Well, I mean, okay, and Bill Karich, if you can actually name, what we did on the front end for the needs assessment, in it, it actually recognizes that we have PBS, and we have social and emotional learning, and we have a lot of other behavioral health support systems in AISD. The systems for putting all this stuff in are very limited. They don't take, I mean, it's almost like you can't write everything that you do, but we do PBS and we do SEL. And in the needs assessment, the way that this is set up is that it asks the question, right? It asks the question, and then we've turned in so many other things, like our entire plan for behavioral health supports, or the strategic plan with the board approved, pieces. We also have our budget that shows evidence that we're investing in these areas. So, as we continue to monitor them and things of that sort, you'll see lots of other documentation. But if it is that you feel like you actually, have to see specifically PBS, then we can write that in there. But we've been doing that, and we've launched SEL as part of our behavioral support systems for the whole district. But
I guess I'm just wondering, is this, I guess it's a critique that the Broad Foundation identified. Is it something that you agree with, and there's a plan to address it, or not really? It's not really, kind of disagree with their assessment of it?
Well, the way, it works is the state asks a question, and then we do our response. So here, the Broad report talked about 75% of the schools actually implementing PBS. And then what are some of the other things that we're doing? But if you keep reading along, I know it looks very insignificant, but for people who've been with us throughout this school year. We've just launched a multi-million-dollar partnership agreement. We just had another family commit another $1 million from their personal family foundations with that one little sentence says this year's social and emotional learning approaches are being piloted in several schools. Well, it was being piloted for this year, but we actually have launched in 2 vertical teams. We're bringing on, was it 3 more, Paul? Which gets us to like 56 or 64 schools. And we just raised another $1 million for it, and it's a matching grant, so we anticipate that we're going to raise more money in private funding. So, yes, the Broad Report raised it, but the reason why we're doing social and emotional learning is because we knew that the implementation or the fidelity to PBS wasn't everything that it needed to be culturally responsive enough to our kids. It doesn't have elements that I would argue teach the skills that we're asking students to do. PBS is a very specific program and things of that sort. So, you know, we know that we're doing a large part of that as part of our behavioral health system. But it's these 1 or 2 sentences that we're allowed to kind of put into this system doesn't come close to reflecting all the things that we're actually doing.
That's actually what exactly I was just going to come and mention to the board. President
Thank you
Otis,
for
Board
saying it
of
again.
Trustees, and Superintendent Karstafen. This plan is an integrated plan, and as you can see, it is not inclusive of everything that goes on in the school system, but yet it does highlight key items that are being implemented system-wide. So there are some items that are vertical team-based through social emotional learning, but there are others that are open to serve 87,000 students, and 6,000 teachers can use them, such as the child study team process. So just I was getting to that, that's why I was coming up here, that this plan is not all inclusive. We can certainly highlight some items and also share with you along the area of discipline some improvements that were put in place a couple of years ago, and now we're seeing the results of those improvements just in this very first couple of 6 weeks periods.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I mean, I could tell you some other, like I know we've transitioned from, I forget what they were called before when I came here, but we've transitioned to child study teams. That's another piece that helps in this area. There are several, initiatives, but there's not enough space to note them all.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this particular item? Okay, we'll now move to the next item. Dr. Mathias, your question?
13.4 and 14.1, it's less a question. I simply raise it for us as a board. What makes me nervous before pulling the trigger on approving $1.5 million in bids and proposals is simply wondering whether we have a policy on awarding bids and contracts to minority-owned and women-owned businesses, and also whether we have done a disparity study or something as a district to be able to better judge to whom it is that we're awarding contracts.
Yep, Mr. President, trustees of the board, Trustee Mathias. Yes, you do. You actually, individual trustees, I think the last committee was Ms. Bradley, Lori Moya, and Sam Guzman, right? That worked on minority contracting. We have lots of guidance. We have a lot of people who weigh in and help us do a better job around that. And we do need and encourage board member participation in those discussions to ensure that we're doing that kind of contracting, tracking what we're doing, and finding ways to do a better job. And perhaps, as I was saying, perhaps Ms. Moya could talk about that because I know you've done a lot of it.
Yes, thank you. The school district does not have hub goals because we do not have a disparity study. We are in the process now of joining the city's disparity study, and that is in the works. I'm not sure of where we exactly are as far as when the city is going to start their work, but we are working with the city to be a part of the disparity study so that we can set goals. So what you're looking at here is the district's best way to, or best attempt to award as many minorities as we can without violating the law and setting goals.
that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else have questions on those items? Otherwise, we'll move to 13.5.
And actually, I will withdraw what I'd said about 13.5. Simply note that we as board members, as new board members, will need more, will need to be brought up to speed on
Right.
the various issues relating to the budget.
Right. And just I know you guys came in sort of at the tail end of a very intense action that the board takes, and that's the budget process itself. But a lot of these items have been in the works over the past month to 6 weeks, and so you would have seen some touch points on some of these at other points in time. So, but at any time, please, for all the new board members, please feel free to send your questions into the superintendent, and she will try and answer those and then respond back to all of us. Right?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay. If there are no further questions on the consent, or Robert, did you have something?
I just had a request that item 14.2, Dr. Christopherson, if you can ask staff to address issues related to this in the next executive session that we have on real estate matters.
14. Okay.
Thank you.
I have
Ms.
a question. I think it's 13.4, but it's actually page 22 under consent, business and finance. I think it's an attachment 5. I think it's 13.4, but it's kind of, I'm sorry? Yeah, but, yeah. It's the Education Resource Strategies contract.
Uh-huh.
And my question is, I had never understood that this was a contract wherein which the district was spending any of its money for this service. I had always understood that the financing or the funding was coming from foundations, and so I would just like to get some clarification on that.
Right, and can you just tell me which page you're on?
22.
Thank you. Right, so you are right. It's just, we're sharing with you that it's, all in the background, and, if you look all the way down to the bottom of the administrative consideration, it is being paid for with a grant, right? We're not using district money. And many times when we, as the board knows, like while we may not be the direct recipient of the money or we may not even be using district dollars, you still are entering into an agreement for someone to do work with the district. And so we are, doing the application piece. They're being funded through a separate foundation. The money, is not going to come out of AISD, and we will be the recipient of the award, but we will not use the money specifically in AISD. We pay ERS with it. So if you can think of the agreement like this, you are approving the direction, that we're going in. When you say yes to this, it triggers for that foundation to reward AISD with grant money so we can then pay someone else. It's not our money. We're not using taxpayer dollars.
So the sentence there, the last paragraph before contact persons, it says the district is also in the final stages of being awarded a grant from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation to cover the remaining costs. Because earlier it says that 30% of the cost is ERS has secured itself, and then the district will, it looks like, secure final stages from Dell.
Right.
But so we don't have that money yet.
Right. So no. So like we, as we were loading up to this, level of getting started and getting our work done and working a work plan, it was very clear from our last retreat with the board that that we needed to bring these things forward for y'all to make decisions about your interest in working on equity issues from a funding formula perspective, and that we needed to bring these things forward, even though we're not using our dollars to pay for it. But it does, commit us to doing the work, and by accepting the money from the foundation, we are expected to pay these people with those grant dollars for that work. We cannot take that money and do something else with it. We can't spend down our deficit. We can't redirect it to arts. It means it is specifically set up for us to have a relationship with Educational Resource Strategies.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the explanation, Dr. Karstarfin. My issue with it is that what it says we are doing is different from what we're talking about doing. I don't feel comfortable approving any AISD money being spent on this contract. And if we don't have that grant secured yet, it concerns me because we're making a commitment without having that money.
Great. So I will say this, what the board direction to me was, after we had our first couple of discussions, what we did, we were working towards securing the money first so that we could do this work. The direction was get board approval, then we can go get the money, because we brought the funders to the board table ready to take action on the grants. So I was given direction to do it this way. We've informed the funder of that, and so we are waiting for board approval before we move on down this path. So we were prepared to trigger with funders first, so the money was in the bank. So the board, all I need is clear direction. What do y'all want me to do? Because I've taken direction and we changed direction, and now we're discussing it again.
Okay.
What I would like is it to be clear that we're not spending AISD money on this contract, so that any vote we take makes sure that we're not doing that. Just want to make, and if we need to, I don't know the process, if we need to take a vote to make sure that is this, whether that's the sentiment of the board, but I can't approve it if it means that if the Dell Foundation doesn't come through with the money, that then we pay for it we pay a $500,000 contract with AISD funds.
Right. So, I'm sorry, Doug. Yeah, we're going to need to extend the meeting.
Okay.
Please, go ahead, Mr. Snyder.
I move that we extend the meeting time until 12:15, which is an additional 15 minutes.
Okay. Is there a second? All those in favor of extending the meeting 15 minutes till 12:15, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes by everyone on the dais. Okay. So, Dr. Starfin, do you want to address that assurance?
So,
That none of the...
I just want to, so I'm happy to address that. I think whatever language the board wants to put in here, y'all need to adjust the language and tell us what it is you want us to do. So.
Go ahead, Amber.
Ms. Ellens.
So just, again, for clarification, if the grant doesn't come through, are we committed to doing this and spending our own money?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we change the language on this. Do I have to first make a motion to pull it from the consent agenda?
Well, let me, what your motion would be to change the language on that particular item?
Yes.
Okay, so we can go ahead and suggest the changes to that wording that you want to first.
Okay.
So if you want to make a motion as to how you want it changed.
This contract shall be approved upon.
I'm sorry, could you tell us where you are exactly?
I'm sorry. Page 23.
Uh-huh.
The paragraph that starts with the district is also in the final stages.
Okay.
All the rest is fine.
Okay.
but the district shall approve this contract upon receipt of a grant from, upon receipt that covers the entirety of the remaining funding by the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation.
Mr. President, may I?
Yes.
I just want to be sure we understand what we're doing here. Dell is not going to give you money if you haven't approved that we're moving forward.
Mhm.
I mean, so what we're doing is we're going right back to where we were about whatever it was 2 months ago.
Mhm.
So, you know, so
I think we're sort of at a chicken and egg thing
yeah, I
here.
mean, we went through this for
Right.
hours and hours and hours last time. So the language of saying you're not going to approve, you're not going, this is not approved until you get the grant, the Dell money?
And I think, Ms. Inhofe, if I could suggest something, your wording is not consistent with what I think your objective is, and that's you don't want us to have the district pay for any of this activity. I mean, that's ultimately what you want, right? So-
Right. Maybe if we could get, I mean, is this a legal question that we can ask
Sure.
legal counsel about whether
Right.
if we approve this as it's written, does this commit us to paying that money if we don't get
Right.
the funding from the Dell Foundation?
Okay, yeah. If we can get that clarification, that might, what?
Ms. Elizalde and I were talking about this.
Okay.
So I'm the voice on this. So we just need to make it really clear that upon approval of this item, that there is to be no AISD monies used in the effectuation of any contract. And if in the consent agenda, if this item is pulled for separate consideration, in that separate consideration, then you can vote to approve, again, on the condition that no AISD money be used in the effectuation of the agreement.
Okay.
I think that's the language that you were looking for as opposed to the way you were stating.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will pull this item and add that to it.
Right. Thank you. That works.
Okay.
So do I make the motion now?
Yeah, and let me just find out, are there any other questions before, because we can sort of. Okay, so if I can have a motion to approve the consent agenda with this one item pulled for a separate vote, and then we'll deal with the wording and the separate vote on that. So if I have a motion? Ms. Teich?
I so move.
Okay, can I actually be just a little more specific?
I
That's
so
a-
move that we adopt the consent agenda with the removal of this particular item
For a separate
for separate review.
Great. Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay, and I lost track of it again. It's on page 25.
It's item 13.4. So would you just modify your motion to include item?
Oh.
13
Removing the item 13.4 from the consent agenda
For a separate vote.
for a separate vote.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ellens. Right. Motion is second to approve the consent agenda minus item 13.4 that has been pulled for a separate vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes by all the members on the dais. Okay, so now let's deal with item 13.4. And so, Mr. Waxler, could you just help us with the wording just so that we get this right?
It would be something like, I move to approve item 13.4 on the condition that no local tax dollars be used in the effectuation of the agreement.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Hinojosa, you want to make that motion?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Anybody write that down?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, did you write it down, Dr. Mathias?
Ms. Hinojosa, I believe you're saying, I move to approve item 13.4 on the condition that no local tax dollars be used in the
Effectuation of the agreement.
There you go.
Did I hear a motion from you, Dr. Mathias?
Am I making the motion? I move then to approve item 13.4 on condition that no local tax dollars be used in the effectuation of the agreement.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Barksdale. Any discussion on the item? All those in favor of item 13.4 with the wording that Dr. Mathias stated, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes by all those on the dais. Okay, we're finished with the consent agenda. Now let's move to item 9, the superintendent's report.
I'll be really quick. Mr. President, trustees, each year we measure our progress on the goals that we set as a community for ourselves in our 5-year strategic plan. As part of our annual reporting rhythm to the community, the superintendent gives a state of the district to the public. We had our 4th State of the District this past Tuesday. I want to thank our 20 sponsors, including Target, IBM, Wells Fargo, the Austin Public Education Foundation, and other donors for making this possible without the use of taxpayer dollars. We provided information about the academic performance of the district, where we are doing well, both academically and financially for now. We know we're going into a tough legislative session. We've had the $60 million permanent reduction from our budget. And if Senate Bill 1 does not change in the upcoming legislative session, we have another $100 million on the landscape for reductions through the 2017-18 school year. We also highlighted our facility and operating budget needs that may lead to a potential bond or tax ratification election. We shared information about our scorecard, where our targets were achieved for nearly 2/3 of our academic indicators, and our students who are new to AISD in the last 3 years met 90% of the targets in the strategic plan. We've highlighted before, but AISD's elementary and middle school kids made gains on every subject area in grades. And in grades 3 through 5, we exceeded the state average on reading, writing, and math. We ranked number 1 on STAR end of course exams in reading, writing, algebra 1, world geography compared to all other Big 8 urban districts. Our graduation rates are still going up, 80% and 4 percentage points each for English language learners and children who live in poverty. And we have more kids going to college. Our SAT and SAT scores are the highest in the history of the district, and we're on NAEP, our nation's report card. We're number 1 in 8th grade math and at the top of 4th grade math and 4th and 8th grade reading. I wanted to thank all the people who participated in the event, particularly Pat Dabbert and Greg Goodman, who did a lot of work behind the scenes, but we have a couple of students that did some amazing things as well. We had a Fulmore oboist Savannah Lorea. Our high school mascots were awfully entertaining and incredibly enthusiastic. And lost a student, Zachary Narenberg, who actually interviewed me at his school a few weeks before, just really inspired me to include the bond information as part of my speech. So I want to thank him for his inspirational questions, and especially the Aikens parents who designed and created all those adorable tuba covers for the event. And as the tuba cover said, teamwork makes the dream work, and that is part of what we plan on. We have been doing, and that we will continue to do as we finish out this school year. Mr. President, trustee of the board, that quickly summarizes the state of the district, which went a lot longer than what I just did, but that's the highlight.
Okay, want to move to the next item?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, trustees, tonight you're scheduled to take action on the budget assumptions and staffing formulas for the 13-14 school year. This topic was presented at the November 12th work session when the district's Chief Financial Officer, Nicole Conley-Abram, and Chief Officer for Human Capital, Michael Hauser, presented the information on these topics. Basically, the 3 key points come down to the following. There are minimal changes in the budget assumptions. We're advising that the board actually include the equivalent of the 3% increase in the budget assumptions, but for now, we're going to assume no change in the current tax rate. And as we go through the preliminary budget process, y'all will see more information about the impact of the potential bond, some of the programming, and the other efforts going on in the district, including our structural deficit and other programmatic request, and then you can look at all those things at the same time and make a determination at a later date on whether or not you want to change the tax rate. But Mr. President, trustees, we recommend that you approve the 13-14 assumptions and the 13-14 staffing formulas.
Okay, any questions on this item?
I do have a question. Could you explain why there was a jump from 14% of budget expenditures from 2012, 2013 to 20% for the general fund?
Sure. Nicole, did you want to join us to answer some of the specific questions? And it just really helps for time. What page are you on?
3. Of that item, of 9.2.
Yep.
Yeah, the table there.
Yep.
Good evening, Board President, trustees, superintendent. That item is in reference to fund balance reserve, so we're increasing the reserve allocation and to meet the expectations that we've discussed in terms of preparing for potential state cuts that may be pending in the next legislative session. So the necessity to keep a higher reserve level so that we can have appropriate funding set aside should we receive any additional cuts from the state. So it doesn't comport back to expenditure increases, but the amount of reserve levels that we have in our budget.
Before you leave, Ms. Conley, Board, we need to extend a little bit longer, so do I have a motion to extend the meeting?
So moved.
How long, Ms. Hinojosa?
How long you need?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
I'm sorry, 15?
15 minutes.
Okay, so we're extending the meeting, a motion to extend the meeting till 12:30, although, is there a second? Ms. Moya, all those in favor of the motion to extend the meeting till 12:30, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes by everyone on the dais. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, did we get all your questions? And Ms. Barksdale?
Thank you for that explanation. I would wonder if you can help us out with sort of a historical look at where our fund balance has been in terms of percentage of the budget. With the 14 to 20 is a change, and I think I didn't follow on the number not being related to expenditures, and I want to know how that number relates to our structural deficit and how just some interplay about what that 14 to 20 means in terms, historically, and what that allows us to do.
So the 14% is our current policy
Right.
that we have to have 14% in reserves. And so we are probably a little bit at 20% when you include the monies that we set aside to we talked about setting aside $20 million to protect and to assure that we'd have sufficient reserve levels set aside in case we do get cuts from the state. And so we've already got that money in our fund balance. And so this would just be the policy change. And as we communicate the budget and our reserve levels, when you see the unassigned amount, it'll assume that we're meeting that 20% recommendation.
I mean, and on the historical front, if you remember, there is a chart that goes back, I'm going to say 10 years. It looks like it was 7 or 10 years.
Right.
That shows when, I'm sure some of you will remember the days when it was really low. I mean, it was really low. I mean, it was, I can't remember.
It's been anywhere when I
below
first
the 14%.
Here, it's about
that
100
much
million,
I do.
and so
Yeah.
now we're sort of at an unreserved level of about 175 million or so.
But just for the historic, I remember there was a big drop. I think that was the year. I think it was the year that they did recapture.
Right.
Do you remember that? I mean, you'll see like where it was never so great, but it dropped dramatically. And then there was a build up again. And then there was another drop. And I'm sure Robert or Cheryl will know, and I don't know why. What was the next drop? It was something like, I can't remember.
I mean, I can provide the backup year to year.
But y'all have had it. I was just trying to do it verbally.
I remember
Yeah.
trying to
And then
talk about it.
Yeah, well, there was another drop, and
I want to say it was the year that the cap on property taxes was lowered to $1, and we were supposed to recoup some of that money from a business tax. unfortunately
Never
never
came to-
materialized,
Yep.
so we were drawing things out of fund balance. That's what
So-
I want to say that it is, and I'm sure there are others that can correct.
And then it
Yeah.
dropped again. But then since the transition from the last administration to this one, there's been a deliberate effort on the part of our budget reduction strategy to build up our fund balance, especially after the kind of surprise $4 billion reduction from the state from public schools and our missing $60 million that'll never come back to us. When all that happened, we made a deliberate effort as part of our strategy when we showed the board and I don't think you were on the board yet either, the 3-year kind of cycle of how we were going to do that. And one part of the strategy was to build up the fund balance by, you did a ton of things, cost savings.
Costs and shifted costs to access one-time stimulus monies, other jobs money. We basically banked it because we knew we would spend down reserves for the next 2 years in order to stabilize. We didn't do what other districts do. We didn't want to do a massive RIF every year. So we implemented our RIF all in 1 year, and we knew that we would access our reserves to stabilize within the next few years.
And prepare for the
prepare
next
for the
legislative
next
session.
legislative session.
And so, and so for us in AISD, it's at probably the highest it's been in a really long time, since before the first big drop and since after the first big drop and the next drop and so forth. So, but part of the spend up and the spend down that's starting to happen is related to the 3% equivalent increase. That's one big piece. The second big chunk is going to be any heartburn from the legislative session. And then the third piece, which is what, we're depending on how bad the legislative session is we're in hopes that, especially if we are looking at a potential tax ratification election in November of 2013, based on the success of that, which you're starting the next school year and you want to offer staff, stable compensation. And so if you are doing that, we would want to be able to have the money to be able to carry our 3% equivalent into the next year if at all possible, even if you can't have the ratification election until November.
Right, as a
so
contingency.
that was the other reason why we built it up, to ensure that we would be able to hopefully be able to carry that in, but we won't know until after we finish the legislative session.
Right.
But we tried to build in 2 years into the reserve to keep our salaries at that 3% one-time payment if we could do it a second year. And then once we do all that, we've spent it all the way back down to the board policy levels.
Okay, and that was my follow-up question. The chair has not recognized me, so I'll just talk. Oh, there he is, okay. Huh?
We're all leaning forward.
Yeah,
Anxious
so,
to hear
yeah.
what you say in less than 15 minutes.
Okay, if right now we're at 14% and policy dictates that, and then if we go to 20% and policy dictates that, I'm not sure how we spend down, we're proposing policy?
No, policy does not require 20%. What is the
Not at this
state?
time.
What is
Our
the
policy requires 14%.
14 and that's
We're
it?
recommending
That's,
20
yeah.
because we're already at 20. The board has already taken action to secure the reserves to account for the state reduction. So this just recognizes, we could recognize our policy and recognize the action that we've already taken. And that's how when we present the budget, we'll show you the 20% and where it lays out with how it affects our reserve levels, assuming that that's a recommended change. But that's part of what we're recommending. That's where we're already at.
Right, that
Right.
gets to my question, why are we if we're already there and we're already doing that, and it's already part of financial management, why do we need a policy change to do that? Does it take away some discretion that the administration or the board may have for how to tap the reserves if we up it to 20%?
It just protects the actions that we've taken. So, it's at your discretion. We're recommending that we set it at 20% just because it does safely secure the funding that's needed considering the environment. But it's the board's decision as to whether or not they want to stay with the 14% or stay at the 20%. But we already have set aside the reserves to plan for those state actions. So this basically demonstrates that we are safely securing those funds by policy, assuming and what we've already basically securing by policy the actions that we've taken in securing those funds.
Okay, so is there any latitude or discretion that is removed or added by a change in policy?
No, I mean, the board always has discretion to increase its levels or decrease its level by policy.
And Nicole, just for the record, though, the state's recommended level for fund balance is higher than even 20%. Do you remember?
It's much more aggressive than where we're at
Do you remember the
today.
number? It's like
It's, I don't recall the actual effect. I mean, it depends upon the expenditure levels of our budget, but it would probably be somewhere closer to 25% as opposed to the 20% if we were going to be at optimal levels of the state.
But the policy is sort of codifying practice.
Right.
Right.
Any other questions on this item? Robert? Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, sorry about that. It's getting late.
I won't go there. Ms. Connolly Abrams, the one thing I would ask with this, I mean, I'm fine with this. I think it's a good idea and really appreciate the effort to keep the fund balance up at the higher level simply because of what, first of all, we need to do for the district and our employees, but also, you know, knowing what's coming around the bend and having to prepare for that. The one thing I would ask, and I strongly suspect you guys are already working on this, that you and Ms. Butts work together to develop some kind of coherent strategy in getting the explanation out about why this fund balance level is at the level it's at. The rumblings are already out there about, you know, school districts have more money in their fund balances than is in the rainy day fund from the state, and, you know, it's just very interesting the number of people you talk to up at the legislature that don't understand that this is a money management tool. It's not that we're trying to build up this huge reserve where we can then go out and build, you know, whatever we feel like building or funding or whatever else. But, you know, just to help hone that strategy, get that message out so it's clear to the folks that we're going to need to talk to exactly what it is and why we're doing it at this level.
I definitely will. We've given presentations to the legislators, especially for Austin in particular. We're one of the only districts, or the only district that has a commercial paper program. We go through a financial rating review every year, and the rating agencies, that's the first thing they look at in terms of maintaining your bond rating is the level of reserves that you have. And if you are dependent upon your reserves for recurring revenue, they will automatically consider a downgrade. So we want to make sure that we maintain our reserve levels of where they're at today. Otherwise, it makes us vulnerable to downgrades. And if we get a downgrade, then your reputational risk is much higher than, you know, you may not be able to issue to bondholders. Our interest rates go up, so it really costs taxpayers more at the end of the day in terms of what they pay in interest costs. If we do face a downgrade, as well as sort of going through the reputational risk of experiencing that from any of our rating agencies.
And just for our new trustees to know, and I can't help it because you've just done a brilliant job. When Nicole came here, under your leadership, it's the first time the district's had a AAA bond rating by the end of your first year.
Right.
And then we've had a AAA bond rating ever since. So if we went back down, just so you know, it would just be like back to our original levels. But we've actually gone up and saved millions and millions of dollars for taxpayers because we get better rates for that bond rating.
Right.
So congratulations. Is it your third year with the rating or second?
Yeah,
It's the third year.
Yeah, and so depending on the bond package size, right, that amounts
makes
to
a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference in the interest and what we save taxpayers.
Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Conley Abrams. Okay. If there are no further questions on this item, if I can have a motion to approve this particular item. Mr. Snyder.
Move approval of item 9.2 and the stipulations in there regarding the budget.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Bradley. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes by all those on the dais. Okay, I think that was the last item. Unless there's any other questions, we are adjourned.